We're here. We're lit up.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Chris Lynch. Tonight we're starting with a couple of public hearings. I declare these public hearings open.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2016 West High School Tennis Court project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on March 8, 2016. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on March 9, 2016. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. April 28th at the Educational Services Center located at 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City, Iowa 52245. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in the Iowa City Press Citizen on March 9, 2016. Are there any questions from the board?
I know we've got a 20-year agreement or 20-year contract with the city of Coralville for tennis court usage. Has anyone on the administration team talked with the University of Iowa as far as potential utilization of their facilities?
Director Hemingway, I think we talked about that last week via phone, that we explore sharing with them as much as we can, except that usually they're in season when we're in season. So most of those opportunities, they're on the courts when we would want our kids to be able to access those. So the timing usually doesn't work. When the timing does work, we do partner with the university as well.
Well, it's just there's a lot of people in the community that are always looking for those opportunities to use, joint use. And I don't know, have you had any discussion since the change in our schedules where there might be an opportunity for a morning usage of the facility?
I think we're still trying to sort out when those practices will be held. And so if the practices are held in the morning, then we would certainly figure out what gives us the most consistent access for those students to be able to practice.
Okay.
I've got a question. Dwayne, I'm assuming you're heading for into the bid territory for this. We're going to look for contractors who specialize in doing tennis courts, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly if we do the post-tension concrete, it takes a pretty special contractor to do that.
Yeah, and I've seen what happens when the layers aren't put down correctly, and you certainly don't get 20 years out of it. Resurfacing is difficult, costly, messy. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
We are.
Are there any questions from the public? Moving on. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2016 Lucas Elementary School renovation project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on March 8, 2016. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on March 9, 2016. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. April 5, 2016 at the Educational Services Center located at 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City, Iowa 52245. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in the Iowa City Press Citizen on March 9, 2016. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. I declare these public hearings closed. Welcome to the Iowa City Community School District School Board meeting on Tuesday, March 22nd. My name is Chris Lynch. I call this meeting to order. I'd like to thank those in the audience and those on TV for taking an interest in our district business. I'd like to start by introducing those at the table with me tonight. To my right is Superintendent Steve Merle and Directors Lori Rowland, Phil Hemingway, Brian Kirschling, Latasha Deloche, Tom Yates, Chris Liebig, and Recording Secretary Kim Colvin. The public is reminded if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting in the community comment section of the agenda. And the first topic on the agenda tonight is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You're reminded to give your name, address, and the topic you wish to speak. You may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. The initial community comment will be limited to 1 hour. Remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, will take place at the end of the meeting. To the extent you are commenting on items not on our posted agenda, the board may ask follow-up questions of speakers, but is prohibited by Iowa open meetings laws from responding to questions from speakers or engaging in substantive discussion regarding non-agenda items. And first up tonight is Katie Knight and Charles Funk. Then on deck will be Sally Scott.
Good evening. My name is Katie Knight. I'm the new executive at the United Way of Johnson and Washington County. I'm here tonight to really thank you and thank the faculty, staff, and leadership of the school district for the strong support that we received in partnership with the Education Foundation this year during your charitable giving campaign. United Way is very proud to have a long relationship and partnership with the district on the Healthy Kids Clinic, and love supporting the Get Moving for Kids event every year, which Charlie runs that. We also are very proud with two new partnerships that we're working with. One is with the elementary school, Penn Elementary in North Liberty, where we're funding an Iowa Reading Corps tutor. And we also have a new pilot project at City High for out-of-school time for students. So we can certainly provide more information on that. But today I just really want to thank all that participated, all of the entities, all the schools participated, Physical Plant, TREC, and the ESC all participated in the campaign. There was an incredible video that was produced and shown to, hopefully you all got a chance to see it, but the schools were able to provide that, actually had two corporate leader stars. One is Charlie Funk, who is going to follow me, as well as Pat Hayden, and the superintendent. Also, we want to thank Chris Gibson. She was there, and some incredibly cute children at the end of the video that probably made everybody want to give. But we also want to thank Ty Coleman and City Channel 4 for producing the video, and it was a partnership with Susan Brennan of the Education Foundation. And so now I'd just like to also, I need to thank Kristen. She was a huge supporter and helped make sure everything went very smoothly. So I'd like to just introduce Charlie. He was a great partner in helping us set this up, and I know he's a very strong partner of the district.
Yes, thank you. I'm Charlie Funk from Iowa City, and we've had 3 children who went through the district and are proud graduates of City High School. So I'm here to give you the best in class from our district, and we did have a much improved United Way campaign this year. Among our high schools, both in terms of contributors and dollars raised, City High School was at the head of the class. Among our junior high schools, it was Northwest Junior High, and they also had the most contributions along with the highest number of participants. Among the elementary schools, Lucas Elementary and Twain Elementary tied for the highest number of participants, but Weber Elementary raised the most money, and in fact, Weber raised more than any building in the district. So from that perspective, Weber was at the head of the class. Here's the exciting news. The exciting news is we had almost a 300% increase in the number of givers this year, which led to an almost 10% increase in number of dollars raised. So I think that's something to be very, very pleased about. I want to end by thanking Superintendent Murley, because we all know that Superintendent Murley has a long list of things that he needs to accomplish, but he was willing to take the time this year to devote to the campaign. He did a great job in the video, and so Superintendent Murley, we really appreciate that. I will also add that I'm a past board member of United Way, and I'm also a past campaign chair, so I've been able to see the level of participation and the amount of dollars raised in companies throughout the community, and I can tell you we've gotten a good foundation, a good start with a foundation for the ICCSD, but there is much more potential in the district, and we're excited if we continue to have this kind of collaboration that we can continue to raise money for the United Way, because after all, when we raise money for the United Way and for the School District Foundation, which was a part of this, it also benefits our school district, and our kids benefit directly. So thank you again to all for your assistance and your support.
Great. Thank you, Katie and Charlie. Next up is Sally Scott, and on deck is Jen Cardos.
Good evening. My name's Sally Scott. I live in Iowa City, and my son graduated from City High in 2014. Had a great experience. I chair the Johnson County Affordable Homes Coalition, and I've enjoyed speaking to some of you individually, but have not had the opportunity to speak with you as a group. So I thank you for that. In the past, the school board has expressed concerns about the concentration of affordable housing, low-cost housing in certain neighborhoods, and the lack of affordable housing in other neighborhoods. And in 2014, the school board asked local governments to implement inclusionary zoning, which is, as you may know, means requiring that each new development in the area has a certain percentage of affordable units. Well, that's gone to a discussion by the different jurisdictions, but I think it's good news that Iowa City is close to completing an inclusionary zoning ordinance for the Riverfront Crossings District that will be before Planning and Zoning and before the council and, reviewed and potentially tweaked this spring. But there are no other inclusionary zoning efforts underway in other jurisdictions to date. I think the good news there is that there are other ways to incentivize a mix of affordable and market rate housing, which is what some of your predecessors were asking for. By using density bonuses, tax breaks, fee reductions. And we feel that affordable housing should be part of the deal if a developer is benefiting from financial assistance from a local government. So right now, as we speak practically, there are deals being struck with the developers that include or exclude affordable housing. And so I would hope that individually and collectively, the board in your conversations with local government, employers, developers, realtors, bankers, to advocate for more affordable housing spread throughout the county, because that's good for kids and it's good for families. We know that high-quality affordable housing developed by private developers, nonprofits, like the Housing Fellowship or Habitat for Humanity, creates stability in kids' lives. If the parents can handle the rent, handle the mortgage, they stay in those homes, and we have the data to support that, and this reduces the churn in the schools, which we know is an issue. And inclusionary housing, which the board asked for, is one way to get there, but there are other ways to get there as well. And I think the more consistently all of us can be advocates for affordable housing, the more good results that we'll get. And I hope this is a goal that we all can get behind. So thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Jen?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Cardos. I'm with Backyard Abundance. It's a local nonprofit here, and I'm also kind of representing Farm to School and Field to Family. And I was just here tonight to remind you that we have a really wonderful free grant-funded workshop called Teaching the Next Generation, The Garden is Your Classroom, coming up in 2 Saturdays that we'd love to see each one of you at if you have some time on Saturday, even if it's for part of the time. And we're trying to get the word out as to many teachers as possible. I also just wanted to thank both the board and the administrative and operations folks have been really supportive in making this a more value added than years past for the Iowa City school teachers, because we've been able to get access to curriculum that you guys use consistently and try and develop hands-on components where teachers can figure out how to do what they're already doing in the classroom out in the garden without it taking any more time out of their day, or so they can see the benefits. So just real quickly, some of the presentations that will be there. We have a lot of organizations. Liz Maas she's faculty at Kirkwood College. It's being held there, and she's going to be talking about how the next generation science curriculum works well with outdoor classrooms. Ben Grimm will be there to make sure everybody's aware of the district resources and how to start and maintain a garden within the district, and we're really glad that he's going to be there with us. Scott Kupke from New Pioneer Soil Mates is going to be sharing his presentation from the National Farm to School conference that he gave, and he was also recently in Washington talking with Congress to kind of promote more use of these outdoor classrooms and school gardens. Michelle Kenyon and Jenny Menemeyer from Field to Family are going to talk about district-wide what's going on with school gardens, and we also have a a panel of like teachers, students, and people who have benefited, who could kind of tell success stories and mistakes not to make when you're using school gardens. And I'll be sharing kind of the data on kind of the documented outcomes and both on things like test scores and classroom management and wellness outcomes for kids. So, and then we have a hands-on component with the FOSS curriculum, science curriculum that all K through 6 uses, and we'll have a high school part. So anyway, if you have time, please come out, and please, anybody you think who might enjoy it. It's free, and there's information on how to sign up. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Jen for all the work she's doing on the IPM committee and everything that Backyard Abundance does for the district.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is district business consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to pull number 6 and number 11.
I move that we approve the items for the consent agenda absent items 6 and 11.
Now, personnel is a very sensitive topic, so we can talk that when we get there,
I understand
Yeah.
that when we'd have to go to closed session, I agree.
potentially. Who reviewed the bills this month?
I did. Did it?
And I did as well.
I found nothing unusual with the exception of one operator error where I couldn't find a specific invoice, but it was located and all is good. Thank you, Leslie, for your help with that.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Leslie too. I learned a lot about management fund and in that category. It was it doesn't come up that often. Just a couple of things looking through there. There are some high-end items that can go through Pebble that we did in the general fund, and maybe we need to increase those amounts. There was French horns are expensive, $3,700 for a nickel-plated one, so don't drop them. But no, everything else looks in order.
All right, thanks, Brian and Phil. Kim, ready to vote?
Can you tell me it was item 6 and what was the other item?
11?
11?
Yes.
Confirmed personnel and the ed equity.
Right.
Yep.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, next item on the agenda is legislative updates. Steve and Brian.
Yeah, this is a timely one because it's moving right now. The House and Senate Ed committees have voted to approve supplemental state aid for next year. That amount that they've approved coming out of committee is 2.25%. Question was asked earlier. That contains no additional funding for summer school or Smarter Balanced Assessment. That is simply for supplemental state aid. Does also not include money for the Teacher Leadership and Compensation Program. That comes in outside that money. That is less than the governor's recommendation last year and again at the start of this legislative session for 2.45. It still needs to go through the House and through the Senate and be signed by the governor, but it appears that the wheels are in motion. So that is, like I said, breaking news, and we presume that it will move fairly quickly.
You know, I sat in on one of the IASB calls last week regarding legislative update, and it was interesting when they talked the REC revenue update. And what I always find interesting is when you hear people talk about it, you think the sky is falling and, revenue's horrible and Iowa economy's falling apart. So I just recommend everybody, when you're talking to people about revenue, ask for the number, because, fiscal year 17 is growing at like 4.4%, right?
That's correct.
And fiscal year 18 is like 4.1%. And I don't know about you, but from an economy growing, that's a pretty good and strong number. And again, you just got to contrast that versus the 2.25 number. But again, if you listen to people talk about it and you just let them talk about the generics, you just think it's horrible. And ask them what the number is and talk to numbers. because they're actually pretty good.
That rec estimate is actually $30 million higher than what they gave us in December, and so we were anticipating good news from the Revenue Estimating Committee would be an opportunity for our state legislators to backfill some of the low supplemental state aid numbers that they'd given in past years.
But it's unfortunate because there's conservative approaches upon conservative approaches, so they take the lower of the December or March. So we would have been hopeful that, we would have got a gain, but we only could have got a hurt from a lower March number. So, any other discussion on that?
No, I will say that this morning, I wasn't sure what we were going to have to report, but this is moving right now, today. By midday, I think, was when the notification came out, so, while it's maybe not the percent number we'd necessarily like to see, it certainly is nice to have a decision made before June, unlike last year.
And I think we want to keep pushing for the categorical funding for some of the other things you talked about, Steve, right? So that could
Come through the general appropriations process, so we can still hold out hope that they will actually take action on that before the end of the session.
Any other discussion on legislative update? All right, next item on the agenda is board minutes. Kristen, do you mind pulling up that PowerPoint? I think this came out of the PDF. This came out of the committee. Forget, was it A&E or? Yeah, it was A&E, right?
Yes, it came from Annie. Background, we asked, as a committee, we asked that the board consider a discussion on the way board minutes are taken, because when we're trying to use the E part of A&E, the engagement part, we've had invitations to all 7 of us to attend PTO meetings, and if 4 of us were to attend, it becomes a public meeting which has to be posted, and anybody is then allowed to attend and be at the meeting, of course, to make sure that no deliberations are going on. But one of the real problems is the way that we take minutes, and the way that we've done minutes in our district is essentially transcript quality minutes. And Kim spends many hours line by line going through and listening to audio recordings and double checking that things were recorded correctly. So the minutes aspect of it has been limiting for us to also be able to take up PTOs on their offers for us being there. And so we asked that this would come in front of the board to discuss the way we do minutes. Essentially, I don't know what you wanted to go, but we can get into it more in a moment, I suppose.
Well, there's a couple slides in the deck, and we've reviewed these. It's probably a little over a year ago now, maybe it was 18 months ago. But the first slide is from the Iowa Association of School Boards, and it's guidance on what should be included for public comment, and basically just says the name of the individual if you're representing a group. Basically tells you not to include the actual comments, and if in general, maybe just the topic, but maybe not include that. So it's a pretty, it's basically just who spoke and maybe the topic. The next slide is basically the legal requirements. So this is basically each governmental body shall keep minutes showing the date, time, and place, the members present, and the action of each meeting, which primarily is the motions we make in any formal action. And it's pretty much that simple. So the legal requirement is actually pretty straightforward. Steve and Craig, I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
One of, just to add, I guess, a little bit more, if I may, one of the advantages to Board Docs, the system that we use for our agendas, is being able to have audio recordings and video recording links embedded into the minutes, and when you go back over all the committee meetings or all of our board meetings, those links are in there. So I guess when it comes to transcript quality minutes being limiting factor for us engaging. I think a lot of that could potentially be solved by more, basic minutes that we were all there, and then just downloading take the audio recorder, hit record, and put it into, if it's a public meeting, if 4 of us are there, then anybody can listen to it.
And we do that today. I mean, every single one of our meetings
Exactly.
is either on video or in audio.
Absolutely.
So if you want the play-by-play.
Well, does that go down to like but I know that the IPM committee meetings are not recorded.
No, because they're not board meetings.
Okay, but you're saying any board committees and
Yeah,
all
so
that?
yep.
I'm all in favor of simplifying it, but I'd feel a lot better about it if we had just a slightly better way to navigate through those recordings. Because right now, you can't even say, let's jump to minute 156. It's just play or stop, are the only options you have. And so if there was a way on the audio and the video, and I think it's probably it's not at the recording stage, it's
So,
at the posting stage.
That's actually a good point, is that with board docs, and I'm just going to, you may remember this, Steve, I know David was part of this discussion, David Duty, when he was here. With board docs, and this is, again, resources, the most valuable resource is time. So it is possible to have the clips to each specific agenda item.
I'm not even asking for that.
Oh, I see.
That's nice.
You're just asking to be able to...
Just literally for someone to be able to, so that someone tells you, well, it's at this part of the recording, you could get to it without listening through the whole recording till the
Right.
moment when it occurs, because it's really hard to find what you're
So
looking
it's the
for in this
audio,
recording.
video
It'd be
player, that's
nice
the
if you could
problem.
actually click on that little, agenda item and have it take you to that piece of the recording, but that's maybe above and beyond what we can do. But just to have the play, like a normal YouTube video where you can go to minute number 2 without having to just sort of guess about where it is would be
If it's a
useful.
question of just a different audio or video player, is that something that we might be able to...
Something like that. It's got to be something.
Maybe it may be the player, or it may be the site that we use right now in terms of where we host those.
Okay.
So that's definitely something we can look into.
Why don't we say we'd follow that up in operations? I mean, unless some other committee wants to take it, but
That's good.
so I think the recommendation is to simplify the minutes. Do we want to, I think we should make a motion and
Yeah,
I'd like to vote on it. I think it should be a simple motion, like a motion to simplify,
Wanna make the
not
motion?
making.
I was just going to ask, so, for example, at a PTO meeting, if 4 or 5 of us wanted to attend, could one of us do the minutes?
Yeah, I would think so in the simpler,
Actually, in this process, what we'd probably do is purchase some additional recorders, which you could then check out. And then using the new process, Kim would actually be able to go through from the recording that you make and generate the minutes, which we would then post to the site coupled with the recording. So you wouldn't actually have to do anything other than turn the recording on, collect it.
Well, and
We'd be able
technically,
to
the
take
minutes
care
would have to be, here's who was present, here's
Right.
what time the meeting started, and here's what time the meeting ended.
And does the meeting have to be recorded?
No, it doesn't. We have traditionally recorded all board and committee meetings, so any meeting that would have a quorum of the board, we've recorded, just for transparency for the general public. So no, they wouldn't have to be, in which case then you could simply record, here are the board members who were present, here's the time the meeting started, the time the meeting ended, and topics that were covered during the meeting, and then we could take that and get that posted.
Because I would think that we would want to give the PTOs the option that they may not wish to have it recorded.
Sure, yeah, and that's definitely a possibility. I was thinking more along the lines of other types of meetings that we might go to where there might be a choice to have a quorum present.
Well, yeah. In the PTO situation also, I mean, if there were 4 of us attending a PTO meeting, we could say, look, the first 15 minutes will be us, and then one of us can leave. When our part is over, you can go on with your meeting, and it's not part of our board meeting.
Right, just having allotted time, that's perfect. And I guess we can make a motion to have further discussion, correct?
yeah. How about this?
I move that we utilize a simplified meeting minutes format going forward for board meetings and committee, for any meetings of the board. Without the
Is there a second?
Second.
Would you entertain an amendment to that
Yeah.
and add as per IASB guidance and legal requirements?
Absolutely. Can I state the amended?
Yeah.
Okay. So I withdraw the initial motion, which needs a second.
You can do it that way. You withdraw to-
Second?
I withdraw the initial motion, but to withdraw it, I think we need a second on that. Okay, gotcha. I didn't. New motion. I move that going forward, the board use simplified meeting minutes format in accordance with IASB guidance
and legal requirements.
and legal requirements.
Is there a second?
Second. We can get this right sooner or later.
Further discussion?
Just because this pertains not just to PTO meetings and not just to committee meetings, and it does pertain to here, and we do receive community comment here, the guidance that we have received from IASB would say that it is correct to reflect in the minutes the name of the speaker, and basically that's it.
But I would say, based on what they said in the
Or perhaps
guidance
topic.
piece, I would say the topic if it's the topic that they wrote on the form. And then it's not like we're characterizing the topic.
So you could say the topic of X was addressed by speaker A, B, C, D, E.
Just use whatever they wrote
So
on the form.
I'll just give you examples tonight. First was United Way. Second was affordable housing and education. The third would have been school garden workshop. Perfect. But I agree that should be whatever they pretty much. We can clarify that in the directions, but
Although I guess people could have some fun with that if they tried.
gotta be appropriate.
So I don't know.
Sure. Further discussion?
Is this what our DPO and PTOs they wanted from us?
It's a good question.
Well, it was kind of an outcome. If we want to extend and have more meetings with a quorum of the board throughout the district, this was one of the barriers to doing that.
I don't think we would force it on them against their will.
I don't think they
don't
asked
want
us
to have a
specifically to do
board
it,
meeting.
but it was one of the barriers to having a meeting with a quorum.
So they're in support of us coming into quorum. I mean, I'm just asking because I don't know if I heard
It's
from any
dependent
of
by
them.
PTO. I mean, it's a question because then you got to open your meeting to the public, right?
I think it means just we could give them an option that we
Yes.
can't currently give them, but that we wouldn't make them host us.
I thought
if they-
other than our own issue, I was wondering if this was also feedback from them saying, we want this, we want more of you to come, or is this just us making a decision because we all want to go?
It's both.
I just didn't know. I'm literally asking
Oh,
for
right.
clarification.
You're right. It's a lot of it is procedural on our part, and on the positive side, I love that more than 3 board members want to attend PTO meetings. There's a lot of extracurricular meetings that aren't this meeting right here that everybody sees on television. And I think it's great that we have, of the 7 of us here, an overabundance of enthusiasm. But it also is kind of frustrating when you do want to go hear what for instance, a couple weeks ago, the Alexander PTO or the Horn PTO want to say, and one or two of us has to step back and say, well, okay, I won't go because we'd have 4 people there, and then it would be a public meeting, and then we have to have the minutes. And I think this allows us to be there and hear those voices firsthand. So if the question is, have we talked to the PTOs? I would say the only interaction that I know has been to tell them, whoa, we can't come. We can't all come, or more than 3 of us can't come. I know that I've heard some dissatisfaction from some PTOs because of that, saying, oh gosh, we wish more of you could come to here. But that's a great question. It's a lot of it's procedural on our side. A lot of it's not. I don't know if it's so much.
I had a conversation with a couple of them. It's like, here's the 6 things we need to do then, and then it gets really complicated.
So do we have some type of procedure about how we give them some choice in if they wanted to turn into a public meeting? Or are we just gonna sign up and show up and then say, hey, we're here, it's a quorum? I'm just trying to, so that we know, because if all 7 of us want to show up, I think it's gonna be important about who's gonna present that to the PTO president and how that kind of rolls out. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, I'm not trying to make it overcomplicated. I don't want to infringe on parents feeling like they can't, or they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Because now this has turned into an open meeting.
Right.
Why don't you take that to A&E?
Yeah.
We'll go
Why don't
through
we
the-
hammer that out in committee?
Because I think it would be good to put pen to paper on.
I'm serious, I'm not picking on nobody. I'm just trying for clarification, just because I don't want us to upset our parents, because it doesn't seem like, at least from my understanding, that we asked any feedback from them before we made this procedural thing that we benefit from, which I think they benefit too with more board members being there.
Sure.
But sometimes we have a tendency to be one-sided, and I want to make sure that we at least give them a chance to provide some feedback.
That's good. I hadn't even thought about it to come from that side.
Makes sense, because there's requirements on other things like agenda setting that need to be in place too.
Right,
so
because we would need
this
to
is just-
post their agenda,
Right.
right, in advance.
Right. And
It's one of the 5 things that,
it also makes it important that all of us up here actually RSVP that we're
Right.
coming.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's some more pieces to just us changing this.
Right.
There's some more pieces that probably need to be in place.
I think we can take that up in A&E.
when we talk at A&E, and Steve and I can give you maybe a one-pager on
Oh, but
Just
it's
for
pretty straightforward, you
clarification
know.
for
what you
folks.
think it is until you get into it, so
Yeah,
you guys got it.
sure. The E part of A&E
Mhm.
has it.
All right, further discussion? All right, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Do you want to give a verbal? Lori?
Yay.
Thank you. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thanks, Kim. Next item on the agenda is community comment. Chris, I think you asked for this topic.
Say that again?
I think you asked for this topic.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a months-long discussion of community comment. It seems to me like there are a couple of issues that kind of are hanging out there, and we talked about possibly revisiting after 6 months of the new policy. The 2 issues I would identify are, the one that sort of bothers me is, to me, 1 hour of community comment with 4 minutes per person just seems a little too stingy in terms of the number of people who can speak, because that's 15 people if everybody uses their 4 minutes. I know it can't be an infinite number of people. We gotta have a meeting, but I would want to lengthen that. So that's one issue. I would maybe go to 2 hours tops and I'd be happy to have 3 minutes instead of 4 minutes for people. I think people can be succinct and still get the point across. That would open up to a lot more people if we needed it. We haven't seen the hour exceeded yet, so I'm not sure it adds all that much burden to us. But there might be some things, and we're going into some controversial areas where we might have more than 15 people that want to get up and speak. And I really enjoy the public comment period. I think I get a lot out of it. I think it brings viewpoints into the room that we just don't hear otherwise. So I'd be interested in that. I know the other issue that's the concern for some people is whether people should be allowed, or at least given the option of addressing agenda items when the item comes up. I'll let other people address that one. I wouldn't want to take away people's ability to address the agenda item at the beginning of the meeting if they want to, so that they can go home. But those are the 2 things I'd be interested in at least talking about.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Chris. The one thing that I think is lacking is the ability for a person to speak on the agenda item, which we used to have. And I think it serves a very useful purpose. I think the times that we have done it as a board, it has introduced some ideas that maybe we weren't thinking about, or at least gave us a chance for some reflection that way. I think it also puts in a pause on some issues when you have a lot of discussion going on. gives us a chance to deliberate, hear from the community, and then go forward. And I do like the option of having the ability to speak at the beginning of the meeting, especially if someone doesn't want to hang around, especially if it's something further down in the agenda or something like that. Now, I understand that that might give some logistical headaches for you as a president. When you get the form, they'd have to specify if they wanted to do it during the community comment or the agenda item, but I think we could put a box there or something that we could work through that. But I agree that, if we do take transparency and community input seriously, we should give our community every opportunity to come in and speak. Tonight we've got a fairly small crowd as compared with other nights. But I think the times when you have a room full of people and a lot of people want to speak, you have to give them the time to hear. You have to listen to them as well.
So having lived in both worlds, I'll give you my point of view. The current policy to me has been a significant improvement. In fact, I'd call it a breakthrough improvement, and it's been on all fronts. I think the first improvement was almost an unintended one. In that board deliberation greatly improved with the new policy. We really just found that board members had a lot more discussion, open discussion with the new policy. Not sure I could tell you all the whys on that, but it's definitely something that happened and it was improved. I think people have found it's an improvement being able to comment at the beginning of the meeting, because we've definitely heard nobody's really all that keen on 4-hour meetings, and it's too bad when your topic is at the 3.5-hour point. But it's definitely been a benefit for folks to know it's going to be pretty close to 6 o'clock, or, certainly we'll get into it before 6:30 and people know they can come and comment. We've never exceeded the hour. So I just look at the history and we've never exceeded. For significant projects, we've added listening posts, we've added other vehicles. The bus appeal, we allowed people to talk during the bus appeal because that was kind of a special topic. And I would suggest we continue to do stuff like that. Now here's the other thing, here's just the reality. I think our meetings need to be shorter, not longer. I think they get pretty ineffective when they get over 3 hours or 4 hours. And I don't think the public or us or anybody's interested in longer meetings. There's just a reality, and we need to get on with district business, and that's why we set some of the timelines and set the hour and moved it to the end. But I'd like to see us to get to productive 2-hour meetings myself, with maybe an hour for work sessions. And then the last thing I'll say is just the board culture, the culture of this meeting in general has been significantly more functional in the new policy. I'll leave it at that. And I'm happy to go through the slides. There's some training in here that was kind of official training on community comment, but we'll see where the comments are at, and I'm happy to run through them quick.
Well, the other thing that happens too is that when you have the person's ability to speak after there has been maybe administration presentation and things like that, there's new information that comes out. And I know myself as a person in the community, when the new policy came in, that you may speak to something at the beginning of the meeting. When the presentation happens, new information comes available that isn't in the board packet or comes out as part of the discussion. You got to wait 2 weeks before you have a chance to address it. And if it's the type of a thing where people have the option to speak at the agenda item, they wouldn't have to wait 2 weeks. They could respond to the new information that's presented. But that's
you go ahead.
Well, I think some of it comes down to the basic guidance from that's in the slides, which is that a public meeting is a meeting held in public, not a meeting with the public. The 7 individuals that are supposed to be taking that new information are sitting up here at the board. It is extremely helpful to have the community comment period and to hear alternative ideas and opinions that maybe I hadn't considered. But again, like Chris said, having lived both sides of it, the function, not the function, the culture and of our meetings has improved dramatically, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. In the last 9 months since we made a decision in May, and having been longtime chair of the P&E committee and now the A&E committee, and having followed board direction and gone through meticulously not only public comment historically in our district and in our municipalities, but in every other school district or major UEN district in the state, we still have the most liberal community comment policy, with the exception of, I believe, City of Iowa City. But when it comes to school districts, we have an incredibly liberal policy still. 4 minutes, beginning of the meeting. It's orderly, beginning of the meeting. You know, I would, again, having gone through this, I know that one public speaker used to say, this is crazy how much time you guys are spending talking about community comment. Well, here we are again talking about community comment. And I would just say that.
And that person's a board member now.
I was trying to avoid that, but since you volunteered that, yes, that person is. I didn't want to pick on anyone.
Oh,
so.
don't bother, but it's no problem, Brian. My shoulders are broad enough.
Okay.
But, you know, in the Operations Committee meeting tonight, we discussed a few things, and we've got all these operational flow charts of the different districts. And, you know, it is our meeting, but the community's at the top of nearly all of them.
Okay.
And I think that us giving the opportunity for the community to express their opinions on how their tax dollars are spent and how the education of their students is administered is every opportunity should be granted them to participate.
I agree, and they can do that at the beginning of the meeting when community comment occurs.
Is it, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, do other directors want to get in?
Yeah, you know, when we had the busing discussion a while back, we did have a ton of options. Director Liebig offered the possibility of suspending the policy for the sake of that. I mean, is there a way to walk down the middle here a little bit? I mean, if we know something's coming down the pike, or you've got a stack of things.
Absolutely. Personally, I'd say we should continue to do that, especially, I mean, that was a very special case where we asked people to submit an appeal, or, you know, neighborhood input. We set up a special meeting just for neighborhood input, because.
Yeah, that would be okay too, especially if it were avoiding what Phil feels is a limitation here, which is where somebody might have to wait 2 weeks to come back if they want to put their 2 cents in public, and having the extra meeting. I thought the community input meeting was good. It was slick and fast, and there was a lot of information there. People had the option to speak or not. But and I don't know necessarily that it has to be, you know, a policy or a procedural policy to say if you get X amount of speaker requests on a topic, then we'll go ahead and let people speak at the time of the agenda. I don't know that we have to go that far. I'm just offering a way to go down the middle so that people don't, or I'm trying to offer a way to go down the middle so that people don't have to wait if they do learn something new, or we offer another possibility to them.
Do you mind pulling up the slides? We'll keep talking.
You know, I'm sympathetic to the idea that the meetings are too long. But I wouldn't start cutting with community comment. You know, again, the hierarchy for me is the most valuable way for us to use our time here is to be discussing things with each other that we can't do separately. I would put community comment second in the hierarchy, and third in the hierarchy would be when we are, you know, listening to presentations, PowerPoint shows, etc. We can read that stuff in advance and skip straight to the discussion of those things, I think. So if I were going to look for ways to shorten meetings, I would do some of that. I'm thinking back to before the policy was changed, there were a few meetings I can remember where a bunch of issues seemed to land on the same night. I think there was one where MLK Day came up on the same night as something else. Maybe it was Raptor, and maybe there was another issue at the same time. And you know, there were a lot of people who wanted to speak, and it wasn't all on the same topic. And you know, if it were me, I'd open it up. Separate issue about whether you want to do the agenda thing, but That's also worth talking about.
That meeting you're talking about was December 10th, 2013. I remember it explicitly because one speaker got up 11 times, 3 minutes each time for 33 total minutes of speaking, which was more than any one individual board member spoke during the entire 6.5-hour meeting.
I think it's a fair point. And maybe if we allow agenda comment, maybe there should be a limit to the number of times you can get up to the microphone.
And the reason I know the date was the next day was my wedding anniversary, and I was not a pleasant person that day. That's the only reason I can remember the date.
So just quick, so everybody has the ground, maybe you went through the slides, I'll go through them quick, just for the public too, since it's been a while since we went through this. Public forum is defined in 3 different ways: traditional, designated public, and non-public. The next slide, we're a designated public forum, which means we can set a reasonable time, place, and manner, and restrictions can be imposed. Now, from a First Amendment standpoint, we need to make sure that our restrictions are content neutral, right? So it can be time and place, but we can't get into whether we like the comments or not, all that good stuff. So it needs to be content neutral. Iowa law doesn't require public comment on our meetings. It's at our discretion to set the reasonable time, place, and the manner. Go one more. And, like, what are examples of those? So you can set the time limit. It could be 2 to 5 minutes. It can be whatever we want. We can set a time on the agenda. We can certainly request that it's professional, respectful. And we can also talk that it needs to be relevant to district business, because this is a meeting of the school board and it's about school business, so we don't need to hear things that aren't related to school business. Now, there's 4 different ways to kind of do this. Option 1 is open-ended, which you specify the time and place on the agenda in a regular meeting, and you're not limited to the agenda items. So that's the open-ended part. Option 2 is where you're actually limited to the agenda, and there are districts that do that. And you only can talk to things on the agenda, which is pretty restrictive. 3 is you're doing it during the agenda item, so that means it's through the meeting. And then 4 is none scheduled. So our old system was basically doing 1 and 3, and nobody else in the state of Iowa was doing anywhere close to that. And that's where we really chose to go to option 1. And to, if you recall, we increased the time from 3 to 4 minutes, and made sure that we had the hour before we moved the topic to the end of the meeting. And that kind of gets in the minutes, which I think we covered. Is that it for the slides? So that's kind of the background. So again, I think public input, it's up to us. It's not required by law. In fact, the law says we don't have to do it. And we tried to find a balance between all the things we talked tonight, and really landed on option 1, the open-ended part.
Can I make a motion then, just to get one on the table?
Sure.
The motion would just be, and I'm going to even cut it back from what I said, that we would amend the community comment policy level 2A, change the second paragraph from 4 minutes to 3 minutes, change the third paragraph from 1 hour to 1.5 hours. That would double the number of speakers we could hear.
It's abnormal.
And again, there'll be separate. We can do another motion about the.
It would be
It's a little
unusual to
abnormal.
change policy up here at the board table.
Be a little abnormal to motion a change in policy at the board table. You could.
Well, I really don't want it to have to dwindle on for months again. We talked it to
Let's
death
put it this
already.
way.
We all know what the
Let's
issues
just say
are.
this: there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
And I'll say procedurally, it's a little. Not to say it can't be done. It's just different.
What's the alternative, though? To send it back to P&G?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll stick with motion then.
Well, I'm going to vote no because I think procedurally it's very abnormal, and then too, I think the current system's working great actually.
I mean, if that is an obstacle, I'm happy to make it. Let's somehow do 3 readings of this, but let's not send it back to P&G.
That's not part of the motion, however.
Not yet.
Further discussion on the motion?
Well, an hour and a half, seriously?
Do you think that's too short or too long?
I think it's a little long. I'd be okay with the 3 minutes part. 4, I think, has been extremely generous, but and occasionally pieces are extremely well written and full of stuff that lasts 4 minutes, but
You're suggesting a friendly amendment to change it?
not yet. I'm
Okay.
thinking through this, which is what we do when the seven of us are together in public. I would still prefer, or I think I would prefer leaving it as it is, or maybe reducing the amount of time to 3 minutes, but making it clear somehow. And if this part has to go back to P&G, I don't have any problems with it. Just saying, or maybe it's A&E's, to say that. In those circumstances where we know, or maybe we don't even know, when we get more than enough speaker requests on a topic, then we decide, we could decide procedurally, it seems to me, right then. You say, okay, I've got 35 pieces here. We're going to, those of you who can't wait, then please speak in the first hour. If you can wait, we will open this up to topic on the agenda item time. So, I don't know how formal that needs to be for us procedurally. It could be ad hoc if we know we're going to do it, but just to make it clear to the public that in those circumstances, they will be able to speak to an agenda item.
There were some other districts, just again, a little bit of history. The reason from going from 3 minutes to 4 minutes was because it was felt that going from being able to speak multiple times, you could cover more than one topic in 4 minutes at one period of time.
Okay.
And most people, when they come to a board meeting, they have between 1 and 3 topics that they want to address.
Okay.
The second thing was that we did change to have students speak first,
Right.
so that if there were students here, they weren't sitting around until that agenda item came up, which I understand that we were talking about possibly, changing that. But the other thing was that we did avoid giving the board president, whoever that may be, the leeway. No, we didn't avoid it. How did we? There were some districts where the board president has the ability to say, I'd like to extend the community comment period based on how many folks are here in the room. And it would take, I believe in those districts that we studied, it would take a majority of the other board members to overrule the board president. And they had some procedural thing that if the board president was acting out of order, then the other board members could overrule. We typically haven't had those procedural problems, but one could conceive that at some time, either past or future, the board could have a situation like that. So I think we chose to avoid we chose to just set it at 1 hour with the ability to continue at the end of the meeting. I understand that goes against what Director Hemingway is saying, is that we need to have the pieces of information before a decision is made, and somebody might wish to speak, about a specific item, and then after the vote's made. I get that. I thought that was potentially a problem when we did this, but that was kind of what was decided on, and that's a potential flaw right there. I will admit that.
There's a motion for the discussion. Last thing I'll say, community comment's only one way the public contacts us too, right? There's lots of ways to do it, so.
A lot of those well-written pieces are emailed to us in advance beforehand. People out there don't know that. Yeah.
For the discussion, all right, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
Oh, hang on, sorry, looking at the wrong page.
All votes have been cast, and the motion fails with Directors Deloach, Yates, Kirschling, and Lynch voting nay, and Directors Liebig, Hemingway, and Rotland voting yea.
All right, any further discussion on this topic?
Is there any point then in making the next motion about agenda items?
Well, I guess it is up to the, kind of the discretion of the president to allow it. And-
Well, slash us.
And I guess to your credit, you have allowed it, and I guess, as long as you take a liberal view of it and allow people who express an interest in it, I guess we could get by without having a formal policy. And one thing, I don't know if anyone read the press, I think the Press Citizen had an article, Holly, on kind of the city council meetings going along, and I found that kind of strange that a paper would want to limit public participation. It's from a subscriber that I didn't agree with it, and just because the state law doesn't require it, doesn't mean that it isn't vitally important for a free and open democracy.
Well, I think the way we're leaving it, which is kind of open to the possibility of accommodating more people when it seems like a good idea, is a better outcome than sending it back to P&G for more discussion. So,
Agreed, yeah.
Let's leave there.
Probably all aligned to that, yeah. All right, further discussion? All right, moving into teaching and learning, summer reading specialization, Steve and Amy, I think.
Yep, we're going to start out, I'm going to turn it over to Amy here in just a minute, but one of the questions that was raised was about using space outside of school. We do a lot of that right now, both during the school year and during the summer. Much of that happens with our community partners, whether that's before and after school programming or with the rec departments from the 3 municipalities. During the summer, we run summer school in multiple buildings throughout the district. We also have some wraparound programs with several of our community partners. And the question was raised, were there opportunities to do more than what we're doing right now? And so Amy took a look at that and has some information for us to think about, especially in terms of some of the related costs that would go along with that.
Sure. So in looking how our buildings operate in the summer, currently the way we staff our custodians is to pool them together and then send them around to buildings to do the cleaning. And so if we were going to consider having our sites open, whether that be the library or the gym, we would need someone there to open it. We would want a custodian around to clean up afterwards or support anything that's happening, and they're roughly $17 an hour. If we're considering having the library open, we would at least want to have the media secretary there to check out the books, roughly $15 to $16 an hour. So if you combine that, that's about $33 an hour. Not sure what we would be looking at with number of hours open a week, but even if we were to limit it to 2 hours a week, $66 there, 10 weeks, $660, 26 attendance centers, we're about $17,000 at that point. And again, that's having it open fairly limited, 2 staff members in the building, 2 hours a week, about 10 weeks. And so that's just something we would need to consider. It is, it falls a little bit back to the fact that our buildings aren't open year-round, that our custodial staff rotates. And so it would definitely be something new to our district and something that we would have to consider the cost-benefit piece with.
Do we have any 2080 agreements at any of our elementaries going on this summer with other entities?
We've got, I'll use Hills as an example. So we've got some summer programming that goes on at Hills when we work with our municipal partners. Hills Cares for Kids, and why am I forgetting? It's our 21st Century program down there. But the programs collectively then work to provide programming for our kids, and that's through either a 2080 agreement or a mission partner agreement.
Okay. Do we have anything going on at Wood or Twain or Alexander?
Yeah, we have summer school going on there, and so the kids that are part of that summer school program, in conjunction with their teachers and support staff, are utilizing the facility during the day.
And Alexander is not official technically yet, unless somebody knows something I don't know. But we were going after the 21st Century grant for that.
Right, we haven't gotten approval yet for that, but
Actu-
we're hoping to have the same type of programming in place at
Right. Well,
Alexandria.
and I know Botchway has been in on some of these discussions, but there are some other community leaders, City of Iowa City and the county, interested in the possible opportunity to utilize some gymnasiums, kind of in different areas of the community to give youth an opportunity instead of just congregating downtown. And some of those discussions have been going on, and that's one of the reasons I was bringing this up. They're talking about putting in some money in the kitty as far as that, and they were mainly looking at the district having facilities available.
And those types of agreements with those 28Es, the benefit of that when we work with our municipal partners and their rec departments is that they assume a larger share of the facility management piece. And so then some of those costs that Amy was talking about don't wind up necessarily being our responsibility because that becomes part of their responsibility. And that goes with that 2080 agreement that they negotiate with us in terms of that cost proponent that, or component that goes with it. And so their financial contribution may cover then that cost of the custodian. So we actually have somebody on site, but essentially they're paying for it. So that goes through that process, and we're definitely open to that. Those opportunities to either expand or extend 2080 agreements with our municipal partners make great use of the facility.
Okay, well, and the only thing I'll say is that I think these entities are still interested in doing this, possibly this summer. So just for FYI for you guys on your radar that's out there. And we might want to have kind of if we could produce some type of a list of like this, what facilities might be available for that type of a thing.
We've been, it's been well over, 2 years now, we've been working with them, and we actually have now gotten to the point where, right in the back of the room there, we actually have everybody getting together collectively, city attorneys, Parks and Rec folks, city administrators, so that we can have some of those broader discussions about expanding the use of that 2080 coupling agreement with the municipalities. And so we can certainly share with them where there are opportunities to expand that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion? We'll probably continue this in the education committee too, because we're talking about
Right.
reading in general and
Correct.
community engagement and all that good
Right.
stuff. All right, thank you, Amy. Next item on the agenda is the Mississippi Valley Conference application letter. Steve and Matt?
Yep, I'll turn it over to Matt here. We're excited about the next step in the process of getting Liberty High up and rolling.
Sure, and we spoke to you a little bit in December about athletic programming, so we're coming back to you at this point and asking to proceed with our application to the Mississippi Valley Athletic Conference for full admission in the 2018-19 school year, and then for some lower level competition in some varsity sports in 2017 and 18 where we can make those work. So we just need your consent on that before we ask the principals of the conference to vote on that and accept us as a member. It is somewhat time sensitive that they would like to do that, potentially to also discuss if they'd expand beyond Liberty High School or if how they would accept Liberty and what other things they might need to do to plan for that.
Can I ask why they wouldn't be accepted?
Well, it would potentially put the conference at an odd number of schools, so that could be an issue. Most likely, I think we feel pretty confident they would like to have us, but it does take a formal vote and takes the district asking to be voted in. So you can't just join any athletic conference you'd want to. If a school wanted to leave their conference and join a new one, they have to be formally accepted and it has to be voted on. So for this one, if it puts them at 15 schools, then they would need to think about possibly recruiting a 16th.
So we have to ask, they have to vote. And it doesn't require formal action from the board, but we want to make sure that we've got your consent to move forward with it.
Yes, I was at the Liberty meeting where we talked this, so I was trying to think why. So there is a formal process. Now, we're a big player, right? So
we already have 2 teams in the conference.
You know, we're a big
We
player.
have 2 votes.
So, you know, in terms of the conference meeting our needs, I mean, it's a high probability, but it's just like Matt said, though, they may want to add another team, or there could be other things going on that don't have anything to do with us that could impact how the conference would get set up. So
And
they just need to know from us what our point of view is.
And from our standpoint, we want the formal approval of the conference. We want them to start thinking about which division do we play in so that helps us. They are already doing advanced planning for scheduling for years out, and so we want to make sure that they've got us in the mix.
I would just add similarly, we'll come back to you probably next fall with district football application that we'll have to submit through the state. Remember, that was part of our conversation in December, not to proceed with that this time, but we'll be needing to do that next school year.
So I entertain a motion to approve the application letter for Liberty High to join the Mississippi Valley Conference.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Great, thanks, Matt.
Very exciting.
Next item on the agenda is the Pebble Fund Life Cycle Budget for 16-17.
I believe this is the third year that we presented a life cycle budget to you for approval. We have used as a basis for this the last couple years of activity in these various life cycle areas. And Dwayne and his staff have went through those areas to review the needs that were there that were addressed in previous years and look forward to the next fiscal year and even looking several years in advance for these life cycle projects and these repair projects throughout the district. So we've went up and down in some areas based upon these needs and the projects that would be supported by each one of the life cycle areas. And Dwayne had to step out for a phone call, so he could provide a little more detail. But Craig, do you have anything?
One of the areas that's changed in a fairly significant way is the facilities, courts, athletic fields, and playgrounds. We talked during our operations committee meeting about actually having developed a playground replacement policy and a life cycle for our playgrounds. And we have incorporated a significant number of dollars, a little over $300,000 to go towards our playground life cycle program for the first time for this next coming budget cycle. And so that's one of the major changes that you'll see in here. Everything else is relative to what we feel we can get done with the projects in these particular areas, and just would open it up for any questions that you might have.
Craig, can I ask, just want to make sure I understand what we're committing ourselves to. I mean, if we accept this and approve it, are you basically putting a limit then, and that you would have to come back to us if you wanted to exceed one of these numbers, or?
That's a great question. These are as any budget, they're targets, and we're going to probably we'll underspend some of these, and we'll overspend other areas depending on how bids come in or how projects mature for us, or even logistically what we get done and what we don't get done. So you're approving a budget, and these are our target areas for us. We have projects identified that kind of roll up under each one of these, and we'll try and stay within those limitations if possible.
Okay. I mean, one of the issues, a small thing that came up a few months ago, was whether we are doing everything we can to move musical instrument expenses out of the general fund and into PEPL. And so I just wouldn't want to do anything that would stop you from doing that. You know, so as long as you have the flexibility to do that as much as you can, I mean, that would make sense. The other question I had earlier, I was asking Les, there was an expense that came through recently about board docs that seemed like it was coming out of the general fund, and the initial impression we got when board docs was first approved was that would come out of PEPL, and you know, I just asked Les to get back to me about it. But so again, as long as as long as we have the freedom to make sure that we're getting stuff out of the general fund that we can.
We built into this budget some pretty good flexibility. You can see that we have a 5% contingency in here, and so that does give us that flexibility to adjust to unforeseen things that come up. We also don't. One of the things that, like Director Hemingway brought up on the musical instrument tonight, we actually have two funding sources for musical equipment. So even though it's okay to pay for a musical equipment if it's over $500 from Peppel, we also collect gate receipts and receipts for performances and so forth that we put back into our music program that's not appropriate to put into Peppel. And so we do buy equipment out of the general fund because there's a funding source for it. So I guess my caution to you is don't automatically assume that we can just transfer everything to Peppel that's legitimate for Peppel. If there's a reason we're paying for it out of general fund, usually there's a reason we're paying for it out of general fund. We take great pains to transfer as much as we can to free up our general fund because we know it's the fund that has the most pressure. Do we catch everything? No, absolutely not. But in general, we're pretty efficient at that.
So the general the gate receipts from musical performances and things like that, they go into the general fund? Okay.
They're required to go into the general fund, and so therefore we have allocated a certain number of those dollars per formula we've used for years and years that goes back to purchasing music equipment. And so there's actually two funding sources, one in Peppel and one in general fund for those instruments. Right.
So I was just going to ask about the playgrounds.
Uh-huh.
And as we all know, there's a huge disparity between our elementary schools in their fundraising abilities. As we saw from the Press Citizen, I think about a year ago, one of our schools was able to raise $100,000 for their playground. Do we give them additional monies out of Peppel if they're able to raise that amount of money, or are we choosy about where we spend our Peppel funds?
Let's see if I can answer this question.
All right.
Because we just talked this in operations tonight. So in the operations agenda, administration is recommending a change to how we fund playgrounds. And they've basically recommended how we set a standard across the district so it's equal across the district. And then we'll use Peppel as the primary fund to fund that with a life cycle fund. So Lori, your point, in the past, we haven't funded, as a district, we haven't funded playgrounds is the simple answer. And PTOs have, so there's been great inequity. Going forward, we are going to fund it. Now, if PTOs want to go above and beyond our standard, I guess they can do that. We may have more conversation on that, but the district will fund equitable playgrounds across the district, and we'll do it with the life cycle fund.
Part of the $900,000 for facility courts, athletic fields, and playgrounds, that's that fund. And in the presentation tonight to the Operations Committee, they prioritized every piece of equipment on our playgrounds, and it's on a timed replacement schedule. So it is a huge step forward in being more equitable and taking care of those deficiencies where, like some schools could spend $100,000 every year for new playground equipment,
Right.
and others would struggle to get $1,500. It's an attempt to do that, and I think the administration's put a lot of time, and I know Ben Grimm is our playgrounds person and inspectors, or we have 2 or 3 inspectors on staff, and they put a lot of work into a program of replacement and everything on that. So I think we're going to be making some very good strides forward as far as equity that way.
And if anybody's interested in the details of what we're talking about, go to the Operations Committee today, the agenda, and under the life cycle for playground, the whole thing is in there. So it's very detailed, every piece of equipment, life cycle fund. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, no, it's well laid out. One thing, when I was looking at this, and I know and I'm sorry Dwayne's gone, because it's going to be affecting him, is that, he's back. Okay, Dwayne. When I look at $475,000 for vehicle replacement and equipment, and some of the proposals we had come before us this year, I think at a time when we are, and I understand there are different funding sources, but still, we have a policy where we are incentivizing our most veteran teachers to retire and replace them with a cheaper replacement. And where we may be increasing class size, we may be having cuts, who knows, when we get to working out the budget. And we have needs, facility needs in excess of our facilities master plan. That spending $475,000 on new vehicles, having a new vehicle campaign, I would make this as a motion, that we amend the Pebble budget for life cycle vehicles and equipment down to $100,000. Now, this is a target. If we get into a situation and there are extremity, if there are circumstances, but I think we should try and work with less on new vehicles, especially at a time when we have facility needs, we have maintenance needs, we have accessibility improvements, musical instruments, you name it. I would like to free up some additional funds for unforeseen things or even speeding things up that are on the facilities master plan.
So did you
I make that as a motion?
Can you restate the motion?
I make a motion that the Pebble Life Cycle budget be amended for vehicle and equipment from $475,000 to $100,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
I mean, my preference in terms of approach would be, let's go review the vehicle and equipment life cycle fund and operations committee. Have we haven't done that yet in your time, right?
No, but we had it presented before us, and some of the purchases we did were ahead of schedule. And I don't know, I think sometimes when you allocate the money, it gets spent. And, you know, and also looking at furniture, I had an email from from a custodian concerned about the purchases for Liberty, and I know that we have opportunities in town with U of I surplus. I mean, a desk is a desk. I mean, I'm not saying in the classroom, but I'm saying administration or somebody, you know, just a desk to work off of. There's a lot of opportunities to utilize there. I think we need to really look at making sure that the dollars are maximized for students and student achievement and facilities, and a new equipment policy and new paint. I think it goes contrary to the public. The public is driving around in later model vehicles all the time. I think we're up to 14 years of age for the average vehicle on the road. And when we've got a nice, shiny, bright fleet going around, and I know some of them need paint, well, talk with Kirkwood and get it in the auto shop. You can get it in the paint program. But I think that we can save money there, and we should save money there, and it would show the public that we are seriously putting money where it needs to be.
So there's a stream effect here to some extent, because you can put general fund money into Pepple, but you can't put Pepple back into the general fund, right? Right? I mean, that's how that works, right? You can't put Pepple, you can't move Pepple to general fund, right? So the idea then is to effectively save some purchases, say those furniture things that do pop up, and we see some odd things in accounts payable sometimes, but to make sure that any savings from Pepple either get spent for things in Pepple that need it, that might be off that life cycle item, or the those purchases which come out of general fund, which might have come out of Pepple, again, be done with or taken care of in Pepple, so that the general fund money can be spent.
Right,
appropriately.
exactly,
All right.
exactly. And like, you know, you look at the facilities master plan, Tate doesn't get an addition, or doesn't get a multipurpose room. It should. It was one of the criteria for all the buildings going forward.
True.
There are other there may be other opportunities, or bringing something else online that's waiting for bond money or other money coming forward, getting brought up quicker.
So my first comment has nothing to do with the motion, but just talking about life cycle funds in general. I think we're kind of 3 to 5 years into this systemic approach, depending on which life cycle we're talking about. And I just want to say the district has benefited greatly from the systemic approach to the life cycle management, right? It used to be completely ad hoc and priorities would move around, and this is a systemic approach, which has resulted in, it's not all Pebble, but we do, 500-600 projects every summer, right? Pebble Save, other projects, and we've seen improvements. Basically, every school and darn near every classroom every summer gets, some form of improvement, and it's through this life cycle fund. Now, the thing with life cycle, though, is you have to have the discipline to execute it, right? And you have to do it year over year, otherwise you end up with a wave of needs, and then at some point we'll need to break the cycle of the discipline of a systemic approach because we'll have to replace, maybe it's all our vehicles or whatever, you know what I mean? So first I just wanted to say, I wanted to congratulate, I think, a very systemic approach on life cycle management, and that has been great for the district. And we see it in our classrooms. It's absolutely made a huge difference. Phil, I struggle with, I'm happy to have the conversation, I'm happy to have it in operations, but I struggle with deviating from life cycle management in general because there could be unintended consequences, down the road. I'd love to have this conversation. We go through the detail in vehicles, but I'd be tempted to vote no just because I know the benefits we've seen of life cycle management and the benefits. And if you stop doing it in one place, then we'll stop doing it the next, and suddenly we won't have life cycle management. So.
I just don't have the expertise to know whether that number is too high or too low, and so I'm on the operations committee also, but I would prefer to discuss it that way.
Sure, I'd love to. I'm sorry I missed part of the discussion, but just kind of a summary. I did bring the information for our fleet replacement. It's a 10-year cycle. We have 72 vehicles. Our average vehicle has 43,000 miles on it and is 8 years old. We did check today with Cedar Rapids, Davenport, and Waterloo, and all three schools are on a 10-year cycle replacement plan, such as we are. We just put all our vehicles on a 10-year plan. But I might point out that same fund also pays for all of our custodial replacement equipment. It pays for all our equipment that we need for crafts. We have to maintain forklifts, and we have lifts that we maintain, things like that. It also buys grounds maintenance equipment. So it isn't just for vehicles. And when we evaluate vehicles, it's not about how old they are, it's about how hard they've been used. They've been used to plow snow, to spread sand, to haul equipment, to move equipment around the district. We have part of this fleet are the vehicles that move the food from one building to another. They get a lot of hours, a lot of hard stops and starts, and a lot of miles. Those engines get a lot of hours at them. And we've set this replacement up. We went through this in great detail a year ago, where we actually have them in categories A through K, and we evaluate every vehicle every year, and we readjust as needed. We've planned this out. We even have our own garbage truck that we use, and that's part of the replacement cycle. So I think we've done a pretty thorough job in analyzing our equipment and putting them in the right year for replacement. So it's no different than, the city of Iowa City does the same thing. You can't look at them in terms of their overall age. You have to look in terms of the use and how hard they've been used, what they're used for. And we have vehicles in this fleet that you can see through the floorboard. There's rusted side floorboards in these vehicles. There's some of them that need to be replaced. The ones that are on the list are not just being replaced because we want to have pretty trucks. We want trucks that are safe to drive and safe to use. And that's the responsibility that we have to our employees, is to put them in safe vehicles. Does this benefit the students? It surely does. Everything the physical plant does benefits students, including taking care of our vehicles and taking care of our buildings. So that would be my response.
We're not an over-the-road trucking firm. We go building to building. We don't spend a lot of time on the interstate. All vehicles should pass a DOT inspection. That is Iowa law, one law that I agree with. But again, I will say that a lot of businesses and corporations get a lot more mileage out of their machines. 8-year average age and 43,000 miles. We approved the replacement of 2 vehicles last year that had under 35,000 miles. We replaced a couple of pieces of equipment that had less than 1,000 hours on them. I'm just saying this from a standpoint that I think we need to put dollars where there's the best benefit. I'm putting this as a goal that we can try and extend the life and go a little bit better. I've had a lot of experience with fleets. I've done a lot of snow removal, and you can abuse equipment and make yourself replace it. You can care for it, and you can have a culture of care, and you also have a culture of misuse. So, like I say, I'm putting this out as a recommendation. It has been seconded, so I just put it to a vote.
Could I add one more response to that? Is that it's, in all due respect, it's not fair to compare us to an over-the-road fleet of trucks that go up and down the interstate. There's no comparison. And I've been here almost 4 years. We have yet to replace a vehicle that's been purchased since I've been here. We're replacing vehicles that were bought 10, 15, and 16, 17 years ago. That's what's been replaced in the last couple of years. Mileage is just one small part of it. Engine hours, one small part of it. We have to look at the total package, and I can guarantee you that the 2 certified mechanics that we have working for us know what they're looking at, and we've been very diligent in replacing only vehicles that need to be replaced.
Yeah, and engine hours are important to monitor too, just to make sure that you don't have people sitting in vehicles with the engines running.
I also have a bit of a perspective, maybe a little broader than Dwayne, in that I get to deal with other facets of programming within our school district. I know right now that there's been some substantial changes in our homeless legislation that's going to require us to have more pressure put on transportation as a part of those complying with the homeless legislation. And I've been talking with Stephanie and Joan and others about how to comply with that. But there's a need, more than likely, for some additional vehicles for us to take small groups, meaning 1 or 2 children at a time, different places for different reasons. And there's no place to go but this account for those types of purchases, and those aren't even in our life cycle approach. So, you know, that's some of the flexibility we need to have in this budget account where we can go do this. We're also faced with some changes in the way we utilize our special education vehicles. In the past, we would purchase a special education vehicle out of the general fund and then amortize that to special education over 7 years, complying with special education cost rules. That's going to change for us in the least restrictive environment. Programming changes that we're undergoing is going to put some great pressure on our ability to utilize our transportation vehicles. So we may be buying additional vans or Suburbans or whatever is necessary to transport students in a school setting. And again, we're going to have to go to this account for that option, okay? Athletics, activities, all of those things create pressure on transportation. And I don't have anywhere to go except this account for looking at solving some of those issues. And those are directly children program related issues. They're not a snowplow and so forth. And so by arbitrarily reducing this budget to $100,000, you're going to severely impact the flexibility that I have to solve problems for you, period, okay? And if you want to do that, we can live with that, that's your prerogative. But I'm not seeing, the due diligence of a decision of this kind. We have experts on staff that look at our vehicles. We've made a very thoughtful presentation to you about why we need what we need, and it's not frivolous. There's needs for those things, and we can provide the detail to back them all up. If something in our fleet gets to a replacement and it doesn't need to be replaced, I guarantee you we don't replace it. We push it back. We push it back until such time as it needs to be replaced. We just don't replace things because it's the due date of it to be replaced. We do it based on need. And we have a mechanic who reviews this every year. I rely on his judgment. I rely on the physical plant expertise to manage this program. And I think they brought forth a very good recommendation for you this evening.
So I just want to chime in with a couple of things here. First off, I'm going to echo what Director Liebig says, which is that I do not have the personal expertise in this subject area. And I appreciate Director Hemingway's expertise in this area. I also appreciate the expertise out here. The reason that I'm not going to be supportive of the motion goes down to the basic, our board policies, our board governance policies. In governing level 2A, subheading 3, the board will govern with an emphasis on strategic leadership more than administrative detail. And governing style level 3A, number 3, the board will guide and inspire the district by being a policy-driven board. The board's major policy focus will be the intended long-term benefits for the district, not the administrative or programmatic means of attaining those benefits. That's my problem with the motion, and that's all I have to say.
I have another question. Craig, I asked you about the musical instrument thing a couple of weeks ago. That amount you told me is generally fixed. I mean, it's been the same amount effectively for a while and doesn't respond to inflation, or that's not one that's adjusted. Are any of the life cycle items on here adjustable, or have they been adjusted for this particular list?
We reassess our needs every year based on like roof area that we plan to replace. There's some years when we have to do more to keep up with our 20-year replacement cycles as they go out of warranty and things like that. So yes, all of those areas are strategically reviewed and adjusted, but as far as just a general inflation adjustment, no, we don't apply that general inflation adjustment to any of these areas.
Okay, or any other, I don't know what you would call it, rule of thumb cost adjustment, for example, that for some odd reason, asphalt has hugely jumped up in price,
We'll go to cement.
Okay.
All right, further discussion?
I just have one more quick question. So the number that you have listed for school bus equipment, has that stayed constant even with the changes that we've made with busing?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're still in negotiations with Durham right now for as far as our transportation carrier. We don't even have a contract past July 1. And that was kind of left in my lap, and I've tried to pick that up and carry that torch forward. We're working on that right now. And so I kept the amount the same as we've been in the past. I think we have a little flexibility in there, but I do expect a price increase, quite honestly. But those negotiations aren't settled yet. So this is the amount that we paid and had in the budget for last year. I believe it's going to be adequate to cover our needs this coming year. But there'll be as you know, very personally, we've adjusted some of our routes, all right? But we also don't know how all the pay-to-ride is going to shake itself out, and we're still dealing with that. And we also have this new route increase that I expect that will receive to apply to this budget. So all those are still unknowns.
And just so I understand, what route increase are you referring to?
Then the contract negotiations between the district and Durham right now.
Oh, I see.
See,
So not.
we're
not
at the
an
end of our
increase in
3-year
number of routes.
contract, and so we're trying to renegotiate that route cost for this coming year.
Sure.
One more procedural thing. Brian, were you saying that you think the motion is outside the parameters of the...
I was saying that.
Well, is it? I mean, it's not funny, but I mean,
No,
No, I mean, seriously, if it's outside, if the...
That's my opinion.
I understand, I mean, I understand, looking at this life cycle budget is a big deal. I mean, it's a part of the total package, and we do end up spending money from other places, it seems to me, with things like musical instruments, because that amount is fixed and not adjusted for inflation, and it's pretty much the same amount every year, or it has been. Okay, well, musical instruments get more expensive, we burn through them, somebody runs over, a set of sousaphones, and there's practically 50 grand right there. Well, I guess I'm not trying to walk down the middle here, Phil, particularly, I'm just trying to figure out, if we knew or wanted to take a look at every single life cycle item here bit by bit, we might find reasons to adjustment. Now that you brought up the bus thing again, I'm more worried about that, and would be interested to hear to the negotiations with Durham just to say, hey, you're the second largest bus company in the world. That must mean you're somewhat interested in profit, not only service but profit. So I might want to have a different kind of discussion about that particular item, but it certainly is the largest one down there. So I guess, procedurally, I don't necessarily know what to do about this. I mean, on the one hand, if you think this is outside of our purview for this individual item that's in the motion, then we're in a bad spot. I mean, we could technically vote on the motion, but we couldn't do anything about it. I mean, really. I mean, if it's outside of our purview, right. But the other thing is, how do we get to, and we've been talking about this for months, how do we get to a feeling that we are spending responsibly, and that not to name any particular large service company that might be taking advantage of us, but that's the every time I look at the cost of equipment for schools, for example, I mean, I remember I was horrified when I found out how much a cafeteria table costs. I mean, I'm thinking, good Lord, there has to be maybe $150 worth of material here. Okay, they had to put it together and ship it, but it's just, these companies stick it to school districts because they can. We call it piracy or just capitalism. I mean, it doesn't matter. But, on the one hand, I understand the purpose of this. I do think we need to find ways to look at it. I'm not sure, Phil, and I'm going back to you on this, that the particular motion is going to will take care of one thing. I'm not sure we can actually enact it on an item in the life cycle fund, given what Brian said about the parameters of the policy. So I'm suggesting,
to be clear, the board can do collectively whatever the board wishes to do. That is just the guidance in our own board policies when it comes to the minutia of anything. Yeah. Regardless if it's this or any one of these PEPAL items or anything else, we can do whatever we want. It's not recommended within our own policy. Well, within accordance with Dylan's rule, we can do whatever we want within accordance to Dylan's rule. But within our own policies, it would be going against our own board policies with what the primary role of us as an entity actually is.
Can I ask a quick question? Maybe this is for Craig or someone over on that side of the table. Have we ever done a 3-year comparison about what we set the budget to versus what we spent? And has that ever been presented to the board?
You mean for this
For
particular
the,
one?
I mean, it seems like we've been doing life cycle for a couple of years now, so we should have data that says, this is what we set the budget as, this is what we spent. Has that ever been presented to the board? So maybe I missed it when you all, we get a lot of stuff, so I apologize if I missed it. But I think that could be helpful in at least seeing how this money is flowing. And, you know, knowing that every year we have different things that we didn't know that was coming up or legislation that passed after we did this. But I don't know if that's been presented and if it could be helpful for folks who are trying to figure it out.
The answers to your questions are yes. Every year I track the actuals against budget and have spreadsheets, of course, as you might imagine. And no, that's detail that's never been requested or presented to the board.
Okay. I just thought, I don't know if that would be helpful to see a couple years at the same time. I don't know if that would be helpful for folks to go, we set it at 475 this year, we only spent 300, this went back. I don't know, that might be helpful for folks to see this is what we spent as we're making a decision for the next fiscal year. For me, I find it, if I can see a bar graph of what we spent versus what we could be helpful in saying, yes, this seems like an appropriate amount. Because other than that, I'm just seeing raw numbers, and I don't know what that means. I don't know. You know, you just listed a whole bunch of other things that wasn't under vehicle and equipment, so I don't know what that means. And so it's hard for me to say $100,000 is great, or maybe we need $600,000. You know what I'm saying? I think that's helpful. If I see a pattern of over the years we need to spend more money in something and we're under budgeting, then I'm going to be kind of looking like, why are we under budgeting this? If we see a trend that this is costing more versus I don't have any of that to necessarily compare it with in this moment, that could be helpful. At least a 3 to 5 year to just kind of see how that's trending, I think could be very helpful.
I think I can tell you that for a fact that Director Fingers, sitting to my right, and myself, along with my 2 assistant directors, the last 3 years we've sat down and we reanalyzed the life cycle budget in terms of the needs of the physical plant, roughing, building envelope, those type things. And we have adjusted it on a yearly basis based on the projects that we did the prior year and what we foresee in the future year. So we do that constantly in changing the budget. So they've both been raised and lowered based on what we think our needs are. And you'll see that when you see the actual budgets and then the dollars spent the last 3 years. It's there.
Thought for illustration purposes, it would be good to see that to actually.
I might also add, and I'm not trying to be combative, but you as a board approve every vehicle purchase we make.
Right.
And you as a board approve every contract that we award for any type of construction project. So we're cognizant of that when we bring you projects. We try to stay within our budgets, but you ultimately have the say over every purchase that's made.
Yeah, and I'll just interrupt here for a second. If I've procedurally overstepped my bounds, I'll retract the motion. Yes, we do have the option to vote. I voted no on, I think, around $300,000 worth of spending because I didn't think it was appropriate. If that's my mechanism, I'll utilize it. But I'll retract the motion, and I would just urge that we have this discussion, whether it's at operations or where, but I think we have to start, and it wasn't meant to be a slight to staff, but it's just we have to talk priorities, and at a time when we've got 300 third graders that can't read at proficiency and things like that, we got to look at making sure that the money's in the right spot. And at that point, I will retract the motion.
Tom, I think you were the second.
You can Yeah, I second the retraction. Craig, I have another question. Is this life cycle budget part of what you have to get ready by the middle of April? Is that part of your?
No, we don't have to certify legally the life cycle budget, but timing is important for summer because we have to get our projects underway, and it'd be very important for a decision to be made quickly.
Well, could we do what Director Deloach has asked to see, say, a 3-year back historical comparison of the same items?
We certainly can, but it'll take me a while to put it all together.
I'd suggest we, if I could, I'd suggest we do both, approve the budget and then ask for that to come back to us.
Yeah.
Because again, we do 500-600 like PEPAL projects in the summer, right? And we're in March.
Yeah.
So you're like 3 months away from prime time. Which is why I completely agree with taking this to operations and reviewing the approach. If we want more data, let's bring it back. But it would probably be working more towards next year. Or it could be an adjustment this year, but I wouldn't want to, it's time sensitive for the summer projects.
I think either way, being able to see that, it will be very helpful. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I know y'all can make it really fancy, but keep it simple about what we put in, what we really spent, and so that we can kind of see what that trend looks like.
So I'll motion then. I'll motion to approve the proposed PEPAL life cycle budget for fiscal year 16-17.
Second.
And again, the two follow-ups will be, we'll take life cycle management and general operations, and Craig's committed to come back with the actual spending at some point in a simple way so we can see the last prior years. Further discussion? Rick, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, next item on the agenda is Appendix 9, Dwayne.
Thank you. We have 10 projects with 15 requests. The first one is a 10-plex transitional schoolhouse. Step 5 is construction documents, which are at the physical plant. If you care to review those. And step 6 is to set a public hearing for that for April 12th. Alexander Elementary School, we have a change request for $33,347.75. And that's for work to rework the pond. And if you remember back a year or so ago, we had some real silt problems, and we were sending silt downstream to the golf course, and they were having complaints about some of that, and the city was concerned about the runoff, and it was a very minute particle, and we had to really we had to treat it chemically, and we had to redesign the pond itself to control that silt runoff, and this is the cost associated with that after we went back and forth for a while on the actual invoices and the cost to do so. And that was for $33,000. Athletic courts and fields, we have a project to replace the visitor site bleachers at City High at Bates Field. I did check at the request of Director Hemingway to see how many seats are there now, and it is 1,200 seats that are in place right now. And we're recommending the base, which is for 866 seats, plus the alternate to go to 1,201 and to do sod instead of seed. And that project would be $297,650. Again, that's a Pebble project. The upper practice field, step 3 is schematic design. Step 4 is construction documents. Again, those drawings are available if you're interested. And step 6 is set a public hearing for April 12th. The building envelope program this year is to do windows at Corville Central, and we started out by just designing windows for the east wing, which we just completed. We decided to go ahead and replace the windows that are also in the west wing, which is the older wing, and the front door entry system. And so this request is to change the contract scope for the design contractor, or the design architects, I should say, Newman Monson. So it's an add of I believe it was $28,000. I don't have it right in front of me, but it was to change their contract. The next one is Corwell Central renovation, and that's a change request for $7,000, and the district requested some temporary heaters be removed. We asked for some additional painting and some locks, hardware. And then the code, there's quite a few code requests associated with this. Our fire marshal wanted to add a fire alarm. He requested that we go to a 3-zone system versus 2, which requires some pretty extensive work. But then did allow us to reduce some of the fire-rated construction because sprinkler systems will allow you to go to a different section of the code. So there's some asks and some gives. And there's also some plumbing work that he requested. There was some unforeseen work in when we removed some chalkboards. So that entire package is $7,000, of which there was a large delete for the deletion of some of the fire-rated systems. That's a simple answer for a complicated issue, but there's a lot of items associated with it. At Liberty High School, we have 2 requests. The first one is a change request for $53,027.76. And we had to add some bulkhead lighting out there, which is a big item. There were some bulkheads over the classroom entry doors, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but there's kind of a lowered ceiling. We needed to add some light, and then we had a pretty significant add for some additional power in our business labs, the computer labs. We didn't think we had enough power, so that was a request from the district. And also a change in the design scope for the architect's SVPA for $28,500. Maybe that's where I got that number. And that is so that they can help us design all the furniture and equipment that goes into the new Liberty High School. We debated just going to different vendors, but we felt like we needed to come up with a complete package of equipment and furniture, and they're going to help us design it and put specs together so it's a good bid package, and then help us bid it out so we can get the best prices. Plumbing Life Cycle is an award of contract for $157,000, and that's to redo the second floor restrooms, the academic area restrooms at West High. We started that project last year. That's Apex Construction of Iowa City. Oh, and at Penn Elementary, we have, again, a change in design scope with OPN for $7,500 to do some additional design work and some additional supervision. But I would remind you that I got a credit from the contractors at the last board meeting to pay that bill. In other words, I deleted it from the contractor's pay so that we could reimburse the architect for the extra work that we had to do, net zero to the district, but paid for by the contractor. And at Hills, we added some flooring. We had some asbestos removal at the front door. The front doors were going bad. As part of our safety and security, we put in a new set of front doors, which you approved a month or 2 ago. But we also had to replace the flooring, so that was for $717. And then at Weber, we took 8 bids last week. We had a $4.4 million budget, and the low bid came in from Kleiman Construction of Cedar Rapids at $4,268,422. I think we hit the bullseye, did a little better, came in under budget. Pleased with that. So I would recommend you approve these items. Answer any questions you might have.
Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Appendix 9 items as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Now, Dwayne, I just want to say it gets me excited. I mean, whenever these big construction contracts come up, right? So a Weber, these are the big ones that really either keep us on track budget-wise and on schedule, or they don't. So once again, here we are, a little under your estimate with a bunch of the alternates in there. So that's outstanding. It's exciting.
So just keep the ball rolling.
Just keep the ball rolling, exactly. So thank you. Further discussion?
But just one thing, and I don't know if it's my eyes are tired, but I'm looking at the City High bleachers, and the original bid was $240,700, and we added 56 even, and it comes up as $296 650.
There was an alternate number 5 too for 700, or for some smaller number
Okay.
to do sod instead of seed. So
Well,
there's
yeah,
actually,
no, that's held out of it, but it looks like if you add the two, it should be $50 more than what it is.
I can certainly check it, but I'll bet it's your eyes and not mine.
I don't know.
Gentlemen's bet.
You want to bet the Pebble money?
Further discussion? Internal controls guy. Oh, man. All right, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, next, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Dwayne. Next item on the agenda is items withdrawn with consent.
Yes.
Again, just on, do you want to start with ed equity, or do you want to start?
Yes,
Why don't we start with ed equity?
and that was mainly, I wanted, I had a discussion with Craig, and I think it'd be informative for the public to know the steps the district made to recover funds and everything, and to take care of this situation. And so I would put it over to Craig or Kingsley to just kind of give an explanation.
Thank you, Director Hemingway. Basically, as we, as kind of discussed or alluded to over the newspaper, we, essentially terminated our contract with Ed Equity. That has to go before board approval because the board approved the contract initially. We had a conversation with him as well as with our attorney as far as drafting a document that basically stated we would keep all work that was done with our district and then continue in that particular way. But we would limit it to the amount of days that of work he actually did. And so the rate that he started at was a competitive rate that we had looked at earlier on before we even accepted the contract, was at $3,000 per day. He's done that, and I have an itemized list of the days that he worked with the district, and that came to $36,000. If you in your board packet or the what's it called? The bills, you'll see a bill there for $11,000, which is the rest of the amount of the last invoice for which he should be paid for. After that, he signed the document. I'll get Chris's signature, and that will be the end.
Need a motion?
Motion that we approve item 11 in the consent agenda.
Second.
Further discussion?
Kingsley, can you, the work that he was doing, has it just come to a standstill? How's it going to move forward? We still have to do that, get that work done, right?
No, the work can continue. Funny thing is I was actually about to send an email to Steve right now about kind of sitting down and discussing what we need to do as far as planning moving forward. I mean, a lot of the work is still being done at the building level. Each of them have equity goals. Each of them we're working with cultural competency team members to continue kind of the conversation and help build that capacity at the building level. Have those conversations as far as disaggregating data at the PLCs. And so none of that has actually stopped, regardless of what's going on right here. But just want to sit down with Steve and kind of develop a plan, since the plan with the Edwin Javis was to really tied into the entire equity plan. And so I want to make sure that we're, because that's a board-approved plan, we're kind of working along those same lines to continue the work and move forward. Basically, year one was working with the administrators. Year two was working with the teachers. We kind of hit a snag, obviously, with that, and so I want to make sure that we're still kind of in line to continue the work and make sure that we can get to the teachers next year.
But the services that he was doing, is somebody doing that now instead of him?
Yeah, so the plan was always to, because obviously, we weren't going to pay $63,000 every 3 years for him to continue, or every year for him to continue on. So the plan was always for me to take the work that he was doing and just build that into our equity plan and what we were working on. And so The only thing that's changed is that it's accelerated. Now, there is a piece from a reflective coaching standpoint that I think that was very instrumental in what we were doing with our administrators and also what we were doing with our cultural competency team leads that Steve and I have to have this conversation about, because that work in particular was, I think, transformative of really trying to do a better job as far as having that reflective mindset with a cultural responsive lens to change the discussion and really try to make some gains in closing the achievement gap. And so to that question, I don't necessarily have an answer for you right away. Right away, after this entire situation happened, I did reach out to the Grantwood AEA for the list of the names of folks that we were looking at previously. And so there's been some conversations. I just don't have anything for you right at this time.
Sounds good.
Well, and
the topic is the termination agreement. I just want to.
Right.
Yep.
But along with that, didn't we get some materials or something with him that we still have possession of?
Yeah. And so even in the agreement, we wanted to make sure, and I appreciate our attorney doing this as well, so ICCSD shall retain the work product defined as all documents, materials, statements, and sayings provided by EdEquity. And so he signed that agreement, and so we'll continue with everything going on with that. And also, we've been in communication since he signed this agreement, and he's still willing to help out with some of the other things that we had discussed that were kind of left to the wayside that is still important for us kind of in the conclusion of this year to making sure that the work can go forward.
For the discussion, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thanks, Kim. Now, personnel, we need to be very careful with this conversation. So it's certainly fair to maybe talk some process, but otherwise, if we're evaluating performance, say in this case we'd be evaluating Steve's performance, we'd want to go into closed session. So is that something?
And I struggled with pulling this, but I think it would be beneficial to go to closed session.
Have we asked the 3 or 4 people who might be talking about whether they want us to go into closed session?
Well, that's why I actually said when we're evaluating Steve, because he's making these hires. So obviously we'll get into those discussions, but there's 3 criteria, right? So I should have pulled it up, but one of them is that the individual needs to ask to go into
So
closed
it's
session.
to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual requests a closed session meeting.
Now the flip is, I may want to do it, there's 2 ways to go about this, I guess. Go into closed session, or the other one is to put the motion on the table and vote on it. In other words, a motion to approve the item.
I would move, well, let me just ask this question again. I mean, in order to go into closed session, we adjourn this portion of the meeting. Is that correct?
Well, the meeting's still taking
set.
place. We go from open
Right.
meeting to a closed meeting, so we would leave.
Yeah, and then we come back and finish the meeting,
Right.
essentially. Well, I move we go into closed session.
Second.
Is it possible to finish the rest of the meeting and
Oh,
then
yeah.
go to closed session?
Yep, we come right back. Now, we need the motion to actually look into this, look into the board secretary here. Is that sufficient, or do we need to specifically state?
As long as I know which one of the 7 you're using, is it 21.5I or 21?
That's what I say, so I think,
20
Tom, you may want to amend the
Because
motion.
We'll need to record that. We can get that right out of the code, of course, but I just need to know that that's what you're going under.
Why don't you do this,
right?
can you retract the motion?
I can give
And I'll
you the
make
exact
it.
wording if
Yeah.
you'd like.
Sure, yeah, and I'll retract the motion to get the correct wording.
Retract the second?
Sure.
All right.
I can give you the correct wording.
Let's just do it.
Okay. So
You're making the motion.
I'm making the motion because I have the wording in front of me. I move the board go into closed session as provided for in Iowa Code, Chapter 21.5(1)(I) to evaluate professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is under consideration when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and the individual has, well, let's leave it at that.
Second.
Do you need a roll call, or do we?
Yeah, you need a roll call.
Okay, but we can't vote yes on that motion unless we know whether the candidates have requested closed
This is
session.
just to go to
No,
closed.
this is just to go to closed. It doesn't have to they don't have to request for this item.
Well, yeah. Steve, field
Well-
proxy.
I would like to interject that since one of the candidates is a employee, we would have to get the permission. If we're going to, it determines whether we're going to talk process or we're going to talk individuals. If we're going to talk individuals, then we do need that permission from that. Since I don't know which person we're going to discuss, but one of the individuals is a current employee, so we would have to get that written permission from that individual to go into closed session.
And if it's just process, how can we go into closed session?
That's what I don't know, what the issue is, so.
Kind of at a stalling point unless we know these individuals have requested a closed session meeting, and I certainly wouldn't go into the meeting without at least checking in with them first.
Board secretary, your advice would be?
Yeah, if it's only a process question, you need to do that in open session. As far as I'm concerned, that would be my recommendation to you. But if you're actually going to say a name or discuss an individual, then that has to be done in closed session.
And that's what I thought I said at the start, but.
Right.
So I do retract it. Right.
Well, I guess, I mean, I'm gathering that these people have not requested a closed session meeting. Is that correct?
What I'm hearing is that it's, maybe I'm guessing wrong, that it's more procedural than personnel. Is that correct, Director Hemingway?
Yeah, if it's procedural, we'll be talking right now.
I would say it's both.
This is why I'm not so sure we're not talking Steve's performance, because he's the hiring person, but I hear the different points of view. Again, my counter proposal would be to put this up for a straight-up vote to approve it.
We could table it for 2 weeks and make sure we're complying with the statute.
Yeah, I suppose. It's a chicken and the egg. At some point, we have to name names, so.
So when you said delay it for 2 weeks, are you saying delay the recommendations to hire for 2 weeks? I think that's problematic. I mean, it's your prerogative to approve or not approve the recommendations for hire, but to wait for 2 weeks is problematic.
And item 6 includes support staff as well as certified staff.
Exactly. When you extend an offer to qualified candidates, you run the risk of losing those qualified candidates if we don't move on this.
So Brian, you made a motion, are you going to retract it?
I would be happy to retract it.
Who was the second?
I was the second.
I think we should put this
Wait,
up to a
can I
straight-up
ask a
vote.
question? Whoa. Slow down. It's only 8:15. We on record right now. We good. So I think I understand what the request is about, and we do. I think if it's about a particular hire, we should go into closed session, because I have questions. And some of it is about process, but it might include an individual in the middle of those questions. So for that purpose, I don't know. Can you pull a piece of this out of here or no?
No, this is the problem, all right? Let's just get down to brass tacks. Steve reports to us. This gets back to Brian's point on policy and what the board's all about. He's our only employee.
Okay.
He hires the rest of the people, and he makes these recommendations. This is why it's a consent item. This is in his sphere of influence. Now, honestly, I think, and again, the more we weigh into this, it's hard to hold Steve accountable if we start weighing in on all his decisions, right? And we start playing with the process and we involve ourselves in the process. He needs to be accountable for the decisions.
But don't we have to, at least according to the email that I received, that at the end of the day, we have to be the ones that say aye or
Yes.
nay, right?
So-
So if we feel like there's something that we have additional questions about and we want to say nay, not to everybody, but to a particular decision, then where do we have the opportunity to process that information so that we can get better answers, so that we can say yay or nay with a clear conscience and understanding about what it is we're approving and not approving?
Again, every consent budget, we approved like $4 million. A lot of that Steve is accountable for, Craig and his organization are accountable. We have to approve it by law, but he's accountable to deliver it.
But that's what I'm saying, if we're accountable, I think people are saying we want to be accountable and we have questions about one thing in particular, not necessarily that person per se, but questions about, and I'm saying the reason why I closed session, because what if those questions end up going into that for safety purposes? I'm saying if we're in closed session, then we can ask that and it'll be less problematic versus if we get there, then we have to shut down the whole conversation. And you know what I mean? That's what I'm looking into. 'Cause, I mean, I just have a couple of questions about some of this. Some of it is process, but it may roll into an individual, not purposely, because I don't know anybody on here, but you know, I'm just asking because I need clarification. That's all. I'm not picking on anybody, just clarification.
Again, if it was processed, we could put it on an agenda, we could decide how to approach it. If you're talking a person that we're into just the whole conversation we just had. And again, the challenge we've had, every time we've pulled personnel, this has been a problem, by the way, I think, right? I mean, I've never pulled personnel and not sat here uncomfortably, worried about what we can and can't say, and the whole darn perception. So now everybody on the list is worried about, is it me, right? So we just created that whole dynamic, is it me? And, you know, do I want to apply to this district in the future when I'm going to, you know, is it going to get pulled? That's the whole dynamic we create. So personally, again, I hold this guy accountable for making the decision, period. And he had better have made some good decisions. Otherwise, he'll hear from me about it when he makes bad decisions. That's how I think
But in
about
the
it.
past, haven't we pulled different positions and had discussion about the hires of those different positions? Because I'm thinking about some of the principals we've hired. I'm thinking about our equity director that we hired. There was lots of discussion about these people at the board table.
I don't think so.
I think I remember some of that.
There was talk about the process. There's a lot of talk about, I'm looking for Steve, there's a lot of talk about the process.
Yes.
Okay, then maybe we should talk process. I don't have a problem talking process, and if we feel like we need to go into closed session, then we should go into closed session. But I think I have some questions specifically about the process. I was just saying, could we look at closed session if it ends up rolling into an individual person on this list? I think it's better to have a closed session so that person, you know. But my questions are based on process about how we did this.
How about
but-
this? If there's any process questions, let's ask and answer them now.
Okay.
I think that's what we have to do. I mean,
Sure.
we cannot go into closed session if the individual has not requested it.
Sure. So ask your question. 'Cause I got a couple.
Go ahead.
But just to be clear, can Steve request closed session if the discussion starts to stray the wrong direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute, though. The law says the individual has to request a closed session meeting.
And what Brian, I believe, is asking, I may be making an inference from an earlier comment, but if your question is, if you begin to evaluate me and I request that we go into closed session, that is a valid request on my part.
Right, if we're evaluating you. Right, okay, I get it.
And you can help with boundary condition if it's straying too far between you and me, but, all right, let's go.
Some of my questions was trying to understand. I didn't get a chance to see the actual document that was created for what were the. Well, here we go with qualifications. What were the qualifications for a principal? Because that's some of my questions. Is because I want to understand how. Because I'm concerned about us opening a new school, and I want to know what that looks like and how this Because I'm not picking on this person. I don't know this person individually, but that I worry about us opening a brand new school.
Sure. From a generalized process, what we do is we build job descriptions, and so we have a job description for every position in the district. HR maintains those job descriptions, goes through an annual process, and in particular, when we're hiring someone for a position, we will go through and take an additional look at that job description to ensure that it concurs with the needs for the position and whether or not the position has changed since the last time the job description was updated. Then that job description is used to create the posting. Whether it's a support staff position or a teaching position or administrative position, we create a job posting that's based on the requirements that are inside the job description. We have requirements and preferences in there, and so that'll be part of that job posting that goes out. We worked, the steps that I provided in that email that I sent last week were actually developed with the previous board based on questions and considerations that they had for us to make the process more robust. In particular, they were very interested in ensuring that at the initial outset when jobs were posted, we were getting the broadest, most diverse candidate pool that we could. And so working with Kingsley, we've substantially increased our posting, the robustness of our posting process, both in electronic formats and printed formats throughout the state and beyond the state border. So that's something that was added with input from the last board. And so then the other next portion of that process is, and so actually I should stop right here and ask if I've sufficiently answered your question about how we develop those components that go into that posting.
Yes, but then I have a follow-up question to something you said. So how long was this posted? And other than just posting it, what other additional recruitment efforts, in person, et cetera, things that we did to ensure that we had the most qualified people that were in that final pool to pull from this decision for the hire?
Sure, and Jim, maybe you could talk a little bit about length of postings in general, and then you could talk a little bit about our recruitment process.
Well, we left these positions open for 3 weeks, which is longer than normal. And Kingsley might speak to how we expanded this search to go nationwide.
So I don't know if it was one of your packets, but basically we worked with Ed Weekly to have to post online to their kind of top job, education jobs resource. They now will be posting all of our positions for the entire year and then pulling them literally off our website to get that nationwide pool. That's not where we stopped. I mean, for the administrative positions in particular, again, not necessarily, knowing that these positions were going to be open ahead of time with some of the positions that are coming up, but we had an open administrator tab that was put on our website that basically, when I was out recruiting or talking with folks, I would ask them to apply to that particular tab, not guaranteeing them a job at all, but just to simply put their name in the hat so we could develop a pool of candidates over time that we can pull from on a regular basis in regards to making sure that we're increasing the diversity of our pool. The other thing that goes out is there are a couple of different, email listservs that focus on recruiting people of color that, I send that information out to, and also, going back through, some of the connections I've made in other states that I've alluded to in some of the other presentations. We open up those channels and kind of have that communication when there's a job posting at the administrator level. We're going to use, I'm going to use the same thing for teachers, but at the administrator level, that's what we currently have done.
So 3 weeks you're saying that's longer than you all would actually?
I would have to look at the timeline on this, but I believe that it was posted, well, I can look here if you can wait. If you go to the next question, I'll tell you how long for sure it's posted.
But actually, the other second half of that question is oftentimes our positions are posted for 2 weeks. That's kind of a standard operating procedure for us as we get those out there. In many cases, whether I think about our certified staff positions, so administrators, teachers, guidance counselors, et cetera, that window is fairly known when you're posting, and so being the relatively tight-knit public ed community in the state, so 2 weeks is usually sufficient. to get that in-state notice out, and then with the both the specialty state publications in-state that Kingsley works with, and then with Ed Week, that 2-week window is usually appropriate and adequate as you're looking at that nationwide group, because those are the folks that are out looking. And so they're looking in Ed Week on a regular basis, and so you get it out for 2 weeks, you're going to hit a multitude of their printed and online publications, and so you're going to hit that target audience.
What's a good pool? What's a good number for pool?
Well, that's tough. It depends on the position. Defer to Jim maybe on that, but, for an elementary principal position, we might get 50 applicants. For a central office administrator position, we might get a dozen. For a really specialized position, I think of, CFO or something like that, sometimes we'd get 10. Teaching positions, we get hundreds. So it's often dependent on how large the pool of folks in that area is and how specialized the position is.
Can we ask that? I don't know if we can ask that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The position was posted on February 5th and closed on February 26th. We had approximately 30 applicants, which is really quite good for senior high positions because they're difficult positions. Even when West was open, we had less than 20. There's some of our larger school districts. It's hard to find a lot of candidates for those because of the nights and the long seasons for night work and for athletics, and it's just a very difficult, time-consuming job. So we felt good that we had 30 candidates.
And just to be clear, that open administrator tab on top of what Jim is talking about, the particular position, was open a lot longer. And so that also provided an opportunity for us to, again, gain more applicants into a pool. And one of the things that is really cool about AppleTrack, not to get too fine into the weeds, is simply from the standpoint of when individuals apply for administrator position, just that administrator position, if they want to, simply know when other administrator positions are open, then you can make that link. And so anytime administrator position comes open, it will email you or send you information that this is a position that you want to apply to, simply because it's under that administrative tab. And so, I could check real quick as far as how many applicants we have in that pool. And again, not all of them have the qualifications for, elementary principal or high school principal or central office administrative staff. But, we do pull from that pool when we're looking at, job opportunities within our district.
So essentially what that does, and I don't know if that was crystal clear to you, but that allows us to have essentially an open position all the time. And so when we find applicants that we think might be good candidates for the district in a role, we can get them to complete that application, and we can hold it in that open position then until such time as we have an opening.
And also, as soon as we post that online, that by law that goes to the whole state of Iowa, that in addition to what Kingsley's talking about. So it goes beyond, we did it in the Des Moines Register, and that was about it, but this goes statewide.
Do we have any preferences for our own folks for advancement of their careers?
Yes, we do, and it's important that we recognize our highly qualified staff here. So we don't want to discount just because they work here, but it's also important to get some new blood, because it makes an organization better that we don't always hire internally. And if you look at our principals now, we've had a lot of them that have moved up through the teaching ranks, the assistant principal ranks, and then eventually into the principal ranks.
Now, on your criteria, I know there was a Liberty Task Force and everything that way, and did they develop any kind of recommendations for Principal for Liberty in their discussions at all? And
Yeah, we actually solicited feedback from the task force, from a community input gathering session, and then from students at North Central Junior High that helped us build that posting that Steve walked you through with that process, and made sure that some of those pieces were incorporated into that based on the feedback we received from those three groups.
Okay, so that was part of the whole...
Yeah, that would have been part of the description of what we were looking for in the successful candidate.
Well, I would like to know more about the 3 administrative candidates, and I don't know how to find out. because I don't see anything here in the process that's going to allow us to find out. I don't really want to make an uninformed decision, particularly since ultimately, while it is Steve's recommendation, it is our approval decision. I don't know if, another procedural question I had was, by pulling the personnel section, I mean, I don't want to hang anybody else up. I mean, there's people retiring and a coach to be looked for and stuff. So, I mean, if there's a way to pull the items we really have most in question out of the regular personnel file, the regular personnel recommendations, approve the rest of the list and come back to that issue, then I'm all in favor of doing that. But that's two things. One's procedural. The other one is going back to the business of how do we find out about these three top candidates.
Well, I'd say from a process standpoint, we work at your direction, and the process that you have in front of you is one that was given to us when we worked with the prior board to set up those steps and those processes. And if there are additional steps that you'd like to see us add to the process, we're certainly happy to do that. Not knowing that ahead of time, obviously, we didn't include those steps because we didn't know what they were.
Well, let me say a couple of things real quick. And I mean, I give deference to the board, and hopefully Steve gives me a little leeway on this. But as we talk about recruitment, I want to be very clear that this deliberation, and Holly, I know you're typing away back there, is problematic. Because even with my position, and I'm waiving whatever right, to not talk about my position, it was problematic from after I was, approved by the board. There were multiple people that I was outside trying to recruit that thought the deliberation between the board was, problematic. And why would I come to a school district where I can, go anywhere I want, especially as we're talking about hiring diverse applicants, where, either the board is questioning some of the process somewhat publicly, or, just the entire perception of it is problematic. And so as you deliberate, and I do appreciate that and give deference totally to you, I want us to make sure that, I want you to make sure that you're being clear kind of going forward, because it really messes me up when I'm in, in individuals, I would say I've been in individuals' living rooms. I guess it's not a college situation, but when I'm having lunches with folks or I'm at different conferences and they're questioning, my credibility for how the situation will go before the board or how our process is when it comes before the board table. And so I just want you to be clear, and I appreciate you having this deliberation because it is helpful as you want to discuss what the process is. But I do want to say it is problematic. And if you want to know the numbers that have come across for some of the central office administrative positions, they have been really low. And I do think it's directly, and this is just my professional opinion, I do think it's directly because of the deliberation that has gone on at the board table in relation to the administrative hirings. And that's a problem, because when you ask me from a job standpoint to go out nationally and to go out to different places, and then we have this conversation about process, which is almost, I wouldn't say it's a slap in the face, but it's directly kind of against what you've asked me to do, it becomes problematic and it makes my job that much harder. It makes this administration's job that much harder. So again, I want you to deliberate. I want clear guidance as far as exactly what you want to do, but I will say it makes it, even just within this conversation, that much tougher to go out and say, we want you to come to the Iowa City Community School District. We want you to be a part of this. And they have questions about where we're at from a leadership standpoint, whether my name will be pulled on the board agenda, and it does become problematic.
Kingsley, I appreciate that, Mr. Botchway. However you would like to be addressed, I apologize if I didn't say correctly. I think my understanding, and then I hope the public hears me clearly about my questioning, is I don't know any of these people, maybe one or two, but I was just asking about process when we were doing our administration, not because I'm picking on any one particular administrator. I want us, obviously, I feel like you guys are doing your job. You're going out there, you're getting us qualified folks and hiring them. I just think it's important that I understand that process about how we got to where we are. So if it disturbs people in our community that someone is asking questions about process, about how we got there, when I've only been here for less than a year, I would hope people wouldn't be offended for someone who is new saying, how did we get here? Because we've seen some other things, and I'm still figuring this out, but I just want to know, how do we get to this process? I'm asking the person that I'm supposed to about how do we get to this process? So I don't mean that to be disrespectful or detrimental at all to our entire district. I hope we have strong folks. I know we have awesome, qualified folks that work for this district, but to ask a question about process, I would hope people wouldn't be getting upset about asking questions like how do we get there, because it's important to know that. It's important for our community to know, hey, this is how we got to this process. And if we have to review that every once in a while and people hopefully don't feel like they're being picked on by people asking random questions, because our thing was, do we want to talk this out loud or do we want to talk this in closed session, because we don't want to harm our district or hurt anyone. So I just want to be really clear from my perspective. I can't speak on behalf of my other board members, but I'm saying from my perspective, I wanted to understand how did we get to this point? Because if these people are the best people that are going to lead our district forward, rah, rah, I'm right behind them, and I'm in full support of them helping our kids be the best kids, and we're closing these achievement gaps and doing the things we're supposed to do. So I would hope no administrator is offended that I'm asking about process, because I don't know, and I'm just trying to understand. That was my point. I wanted understanding about that, because these are 3 really big, important jobs that are going to be in our district, and it's going to be impacting large numbers of kids. So are these the best qualified people that you guys can find as for our district? I'm going to be looking for results, right? I'm going to be looking for the end product of the results of what our employee, from a board perspective, has put out here. That's what I'm going to be looking at. Steve, did you make the best decision here? And so that's all. I'm just asking about process. I'm not trying to offend anybody in the TV land. I'm not trying to offend you, because I'm asking about process. And I do understand how that could be problematic if people feel that they are going to be under some certain level of scrutiny because board members are asking questions. But I would think that we need much stronger people to have more backbone if people are just asking about process and it's running them away from our district. We need excellent, wonderful people, qualified folks who are working here. And I would hope that you would be able to present that well, that when they're asking those questions, they want to make sure that we have the best people working for our district. And hopefully that will help weed out the people that shouldn't be here versus the people who are trying to be here because they feel some certain type of way. I think that's part of some of our climate issues, is it's about somebody's feelings and how they feel. But that's just my perspective. I'll shut up.
So
I think that Director Lynch said it well, that you as a board hold Mr. Burley accountable and he holds me accountable, and we take great pride in this process, and it was extremely involved, including several teachers, administrators, and so, I guess you need to hold, or Steve needs to hold me accountable for hiring the right people. But I think if you look at our track record throughout the quality of our building principals, I will stand behind anyone that we've hired in my 12-year tenure, and I will definitely stand behind the 3 people that are recommended to you tonight, and I'll stake my reputation on all 3 of them.
So if we've answered all the process questions, I think we owe it a straight-up vote. That's my thought.
Before you do that, I would just like to reinforce that process always has an opportunity to improve. The process that we have in front of you right now was developed in conversation with board members during the previous board configuration because there were requests on their part to try to make the process work better. And we are definitely willing and able to do that. So if there are opportunities for us to improve this, please know that we would like to do that. We are more than open to having that conversation in whatever forum works well for the board. And whether it's keeping, getting rid of, changing the steps that we have in the process, we're very open to that. So we just need direction from you in steps that we can take to make this better and more effective for you as a board.
I'm not looking to get back into it, but it should be proactively review the process too, right? Versus when personnel's up, so.
Well, and I'll just say that I had real reservations of even pulling this. I debated, I talked with Jim, James, Dr. Peterson about it, and I didn't want, and I was in agreement with our discussion, is that we didn't want the very first action that these members would have would be a discussion what we're having. But I think to a certain extent it was kind of a perfect storm in how not to do it, in the way that it came out during spring break. It was pushed by the Press Citizen running a story. I know myself, I felt like, I'm the last person to know, type of a thing. And, again, I'll speak for myself, but I take our role seriously. We are a deliberating body. We're not a rubber stamp. Or if we are a rubber stamp, I guess I didn't sign on for that. But I think there were things that could have been done better. And I think as going forward, definitely we should have those discussions. And especially, 3 very high-profile positions released at a time when it wasn't convenient to grab a phone and talk to somebody and get some answers.
Just setting this issue aside, and I'm going to vote yes, but it just seems like the board members are struggling with the idea of oversight and just what it means. And if oversight always comes down to, well, we just have to be really hands-off, and then if we don't like the outcome, we can always fire the superintendent. I mean, we're not going to fire the superintendent over everything we don't like, right? We shouldn't. It's crazy. And so we're trying to find some way of addressing things that aren't at that level, but that we don't want to just be totally hands-off about. And again, I'm not even talking about this. I'm talking about, for example, the vehicles or the other things that we're sort of reluctant to just rubber stamp everything, but also it's not important enough that we're going to say, well, Steve, get lost because we don't like this item on the Temple budget. I mean, so I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not entirely comfortable with a completely hands-off. I mean, why is it being presented to us for approval then?
We are going to have other administrator, hirings potentially coming. So if there is a change to process, I would just ask that before we put further names to you, if there's something you would like us to do differently, that we'd know about that, so we can definitely fix that before we'd present more names here sometime soon this spring.
Is it possible to get a small summary of the people that are coming for those positions? I don't need to know a lot, but it'd be nice if it was a little bio of this person's coming from us. They've had 20 years of experience. I mean, is that against a rule or anything? I'm just saying because these are just people on paper, and we have to approve that. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I really would like to know, like, this is a great person because they're going to offer these wonderful things, and they come from Florida, and we're so glad to have them in our district. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not trying to pick on nobody. I promise I'm not. It's a little disturbing to me right now, but I'm just, because these are high-profile pictures that are going to impact a lot of our kids. And this is me saying I care. This is not me saying, no, don't hire this person, because I don't know these people. But it would be nice, especially if we have new people, bring them in so we can welcome them, something. It just would be nice for those positions to be able to know a small, even if it's 2 sentences, I don't know, a picture, something, so that we can at least know who these
We
people
can
are.
definitely do that, and maybe what I can do is after the meeting, I can just touch base with you and get some of those highlight issues that you think we ought to do. We can develop a form for it, so that we make sure that we collect all that information. Some of that stuff may not show up in their resume. We may not hear about it during the interview, but we can work with the candidates then to have them help us fill that out. We can definitely get that to you. That is not a problem at all.
All right, I think we're through deliberation, so I motion to approve consent item number 6, personnel.
Second.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
There's nothing yet.
I was going to say, really? Because nobody's voted. I'm going to close it and open it again and see what happens. Oh, now they say off, not present, vote. All right, try it again. Did you get anything?
Roll call?
I think I will do roll call if that's all right. Liebig?
Yes.
Deloach?
Yes.
Yates?
I abstain.
Hemingway?
Abstain.
Rotland?
Yes.
Kirschling?
Yes.
Lynch.
Yes.
All votes have been cast and the motion carries with directors Liebig, Deloach, Rutland, Kirschling, and Lynch voting yea, and directors Yates and Hemingway abstaining.
Just according to Robert's rules, we should have to know why people are abstaining. Can I ask why people are abstaining?
Sure. I don't have enough information to make an informed decision.
Ditto.
Steve, next steps? Anything you need from us?
No, I think I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, we covered them all right. Next item on the agenda is agenda setting, April 12th.
I'd like to put agenda setting on the agenda.
I think we did on,
The board wrote work, number 5.
Draft? Yep. Excellent.
yeah, that was from last time.
It's a D5.
I'll just tell you, I think we have a pretty full meeting already. Transportation appeals, there's a number of items. Is district goals, Steve, is that an annual item that just came up?
Yeah, that's just a placeholder. It comes on annually for that meeting.
So we can move that to a future meeting,
We
maybe,
can.
unless we
Certainly
really
can
want
do
to.
that.
How about we move that to a future meeting? Or we'll have a work session that's probably lengthier too, so. Going once, twice, so we'll move goal setting forward somewhere. April 12th, work session, attendance zones, basically. And then I know we're going to talk at the work session, but I think odds are we're going to create a work session on the 29th and also talk attendance zones.
I'd like to make sure that when we do these work sessions about attendance zones, that it's not out of bounds for us to talk about the facilities master plan, and that attendance zones refers not only to elementary, but also secondary.
Just link it to the attendance zone, we're fine.
Say it again?
Just link it to the attendance zone conversation.
Okay.
Should be fine.
I would like to ask, could we do the work session at a time that is not after a board meeting, when it's this loaded of an agenda on the board meeting?
Do whatever we want.
And then a topic that's so loaded? I mean, I feel like we've got some members that really aren't, I don't know what the right word is, but they're not participating to the degree they would like to because of the hour of night.
Yeah, I think that's why we talked about the 29th, but, you know, as a
You
board,
said moving it to the 29th?
no, I said, I think we're going to have a work session on the 29th in addition to the one tonight.
In addition to the
Yeah.
12th? I would like to not have it on the 12th. Do it a different time.
Got a date? Or do we want to work that separately?
I think we need to work that separately, but I don't know. What does everybody think?
We can set up a doodle poll. Again, it's only there because we set up a board norm that that's when work sessions happen. They don't have to happen then, we can do them anytime.
I would just counter that we're all here, and we all have lives and careers outside of this, and because we're all here, I think it's ideal to do the work session after. But I do understand what you're saying, Director Rowland.
It's back to us if we keep our meetings to like 2 hours versus longer, then
12th meeting is going to be long. I mean, we have transportation appeals, so I think it's likely to be a lengthy meeting, so, you know. We know
That the
that
work
going in.
session is going to be on location somewhere, is that right?
yeah, where's education at?
Alexander.
So we'd be at Alexander. Well, why don't we plug the 12th, and we'll also look for other dates, and we can, if there's another date that works better, then we'll add it and give ourselves some options. I don't disagree, and I think we can call an audible if things go along, we just call it, or,
Yeah, I don't think that I think that considering the nature of the topic and the timing of the topic with regard to this April 12th work session, I should be clear on this, and the fact that we're aiming for potentially a May decision, I think it's important to continue with the idea of a work session, however, on the 12th. However, going forward, I don't disagree with what Director Rotland's saying in trying to find more mutually.
Alternate solutions.
Right.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, now it's 9 o'clock and we're about to start a work session that's a very, very big topic. And I think we need to have all 7 members fully participating. And if it's not, I mean, honestly, we've been here 4 hours now, some of you 5 hours. I mean, it's a lot to ask.
You have to prepare for the meeting in addition to prepare for the work session. Would it be crazy to put a work session on April 5th, the Tuesday before?
We already have committee meetings on April 5th.
Yeah.
Well, and the schedule's kind of messed up because the groundbreaking for new Hoovers at 4:30, P&G's been moved 5:45, A&E meets after P&G.
We'll do a doodle poll, see what we can do.
Why can't we have our, if that's an option, and I'm not saying that it is, why can't we do it after our education committee?
We are on the 29th.
We are on the 29th.
I'm just saying.
Do it again on the 19th?
We may again on the 19th.
Okay.
That's one.
I'm just saying, because that one's really early, and
We're all
then
together.
we're all
that could
there.
work.
Oh, which, on the 19th?
Yeah, we plan for after education
I mean,
until we're done, I guess.
So you're talking tonight's meeting?
No.
Tonight's work? Okay, I'm confused. Sorry.
Good at this point.
Sounds like at this point, we're going to plan, we got one tonight. We're penciling in the 29th. I think we got the 12th on the books, and Latasha's recommending that perhaps the 19th after the education committee would be a good option. We'll put that in the doodle poll and look and see what we can do. Anything else on agenda setting? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.